Hello, everyone, and welcome to Season 9 of Film Rescue Show. I've got a bunch of people here that I love. We've got a movie here to talk about that I don't. This is giving serious Season 6 vibes because not only is J.J. Abrams back, but KURTZMAAAN is back as well.
Welcome back to the Ferris wheel of pain.
Before I introduce our movie, let me introduce our panel. I have Hope with us. How are you doing today, Hope?
I have my soju. I have my red shirt on because I want to die. And as I've said every season, starting into a new season of Film Rescue, I've been sober up until now. So when I drink, I can forget everything I watched.
Right.
So it's
fair.
The drinking has begun again.
I specifically went out and got a brand new bottle of Jack Daniels. This will be done by the time we're finished.
Oh, boy, this is going to be a good one. That was Jesse Fresco with the Jack Daniels. Jesse, thank you for being here. I know this one pained you deeply.
Oh, man, it's a good thing I don't own a firearm. Oh, boy.
Jesus Christ. Set phasers to stun, please. We also have Case Aiken here from Another Pass and the Men of Steel podcast. Case, you're also a deep lore Star Trek nerd. I'm so excited to have you on something Star Trek. I'm sorry that it's this.
It's okay. I'm honestly glad to revisit this movie since we covered it like years ago on Another Pass, so it was a chance to see if my notes actually held up in any way.
It's a new inoculation, right? You get a new little vaccine.
I think I found some new stuff that people would be like, huh? Oh, yeah.
But for the record, I just got back from Kentucky doing a week-long distillery trip for my day job, and so I'm trying to make this through without having to crack open the bourbon, but I have several bottles to my right, and I have coffee in front of me to add it to.
What is your day job, and how can I apply?
Well, if you would like to work with a distribution company for liquor in the Maryland, D.C., Delaware area, Look me up. I'm C. Aiken at prestigeledroit.com.
I moved to Florida. I'm in Florida. I used to be a part of the Maryland crew.
Sell your house, move back to Maryland, damn it.
I'm sure Tina would gladly take me back. Are you kidding me?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, let's announce our movie today. I've hinted towards it. It's Star Trek. I've hinted towards who wrote it. But guys,
which one? Which Star Trek?
We're going into darkness, and
yes, we are.
That is not a promise from the title. That is a threat.
Yeah,
can I say threat from this movie?
I hate the title of this movie.
It's so stupid.
It's so stupid.
It was going to be my positive. It was going to be like they promised us this, and that's what we got.
Oh God, damn it.
Let's run through this real quick.
Did you know this movie's about 9/11? It's about 9/11.
Oh God, boy, does it want to be. I would love to swing through and get everybody's first impressions of this movie. Because this is video, show of hands, who saw this in theaters? Wow, all four of us. Rough. All right, everybody, strap in for theater experience.
I walked out so angry, I punched the poster.
Ooh.
I felt violated and offended walking out of it. Because this was my most hated of 2013. My most hated. Man of Steel came out like a month before this. I really hated that. This one, I had a deep, deep anger. Like, in the core of my being, I was angry. Because it felt like an absolute betrayal. I'm more of a Star Trek person than a Superman person, so I walked out, like, ready to fucking fight.
And like do you know why he's called the professional cynic now?
Yes, that's why I take that title.
Right. Jeez. And you know what? I feel you. That's as a deep, like, longtime Star Trek fan like you, I'm sure that was hard to watch.
And seeing the critic, what is the Rotten Tomatoes at this? Was it like 86%?
Yeah,
because it appealed to viewers who weren't Star Trek fans. Like we were saying before we actually officially started the podcast today, this film had the name Star Trek slapped onto it. It's not necessarily a Star Trek film, but it appealed to general masses. And that's why, because it's not for Star Trek people, it's for general masses. And there's a big crossover and confusion because of that.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, Hope, what was your theater experience like?
So I went with one of my many of ex-wives back in Maryland, not actual wives, but wifeys. And she is the biggest, Star Trek person on the planet. Literally on the planet. But she's not necessarily a film person. So she loved it because it is Star Trek. But I could tell there was something wasn't sitting quite right with her. And I was just kind of playing nice. And I was like, oh yeah, that's great. Loved it. Blah, 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 blah. And I'm just sitting there like, I'm only here for my wife. I'm only here for my wife. I am only here for my wife. Then right after I was like, because this was in Towson area, we saw it. And I was like, tilted kilts down the road. Can we get sloshed?
There you go.
So we went to the tilted kilt after, and she was like, "Oh, why'd you?" I was like, "Just let me drink, damn it, just let me drink." So yeah, that was my experience.
Yeah, wow. So out the theater, straight to the bottle. Case, what was your theater experience like a full decade ago now?
Oh God. So at this point, I was helping out a friend who was a YouTuber at the time for a show. Well, two friends for a show called Vash and Justin. So we saw it on Friday morning in Times Square.
Wow.
Of the release.
Okay,
wow.
shit.
And the entire subway ride back to Queens to actually record the episode for them, I was just bitching about this movie the whole time.
Seething.
I mean, because First Wave is just the pedantry of all the nitpicks of this part was wrong and this part was wrong and this part was wrong.
Yeah.
As I was trying to come to my thoughts about the structure and the themes and all the problems with it, because it was pretty hyped. I mean, ultimately.
Yeah. Oh, we all were.
Yeah, they're. 09, I still have, generally speaking, positive feelings for, even though there are a lot of problems with that movie.
Yeah.
And I was excited to see another adventure with this cast and crew.
Yeah.
I was disappointed at the amount of anti-hype or anti-promotions where they're like, it's not Khan. We swear it's not Khan.
Yeah, that was
not
weird.
Khan.
That was fucking weird.
Yeah.
Who couldn't have guessed that? Seriously.
Well, I mean,
once the internet guessed it, stop fucking lying when that's not the that's not the actual answer.
Yeah.
Well, it's because a line like "somehow Khan returned" wouldn't play well,
Well, also, it's not necessarily returned. To us, it's returned. I actually rewatched Star Trek 2 last night, and then holy shit, it's so fucking good still.
Again, we're going back to Star Trek people versus general masses,
Yeah.
So the average watcher isn't gonna know who Khan is,
Yeah.
So it's this whole.
But it doesn't.
No one knows the iconic
it's weird
Khan.
It's weird that they were aggressively denying that it was Khan leading into the movie when the internet had already figured it out, and then we got to the movie and it's a very bad version of a character, and it's
racist version of the character.
Yes. Oh my God.
Because the time change in the universe doesn't affect the launching of Khan and his crew into space in 1996. He would still be Ricardo Montalban.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's honestly it's even worse than that.
Can we
it's way worse than that.
It's
Can
way
we all
worse than
just
that because
agree that the movie fanboys did better at attacking Star Trek than this movie did?
Yeah. I mean, it really makes it really bad when you try to say that this is a 9/11 attack film. When Kirk has to team up with Khan, who is a representation of Osama bin Laden, to take down Republican America, which is portrayed by Admiral RoboCop, that's not a good image.
Yeah?
Yeah. So suffice it to say, for my experience, this was frustrating at the time. It has only retained that frustration as I have explored it more. That said, with the passage of time and the fact that we have things like Star Trek Strange New Worlds, I don't have as much burning ire about it, and I can see some of the positives, but like, man, this is the most disappointing Star Trek movie in the entire franchise.
Well, I mean, I've said before that if you're a Star Trek fan and you say this is your favorite movie, I'm immediately suspect of you.
Yeah.
I hate to be the guy that pulls that card like, oh, you're not a real fan, but this isn't really a Star Trek movie.
We put the phaser in the case to suss out Trekkies like you.
Right.
It really tries to not be a Star Trek movie. I remember when they were when they land on Kronos, which is that the actual spelling? I remember it being spelled.
Yeah,
I thought
they use that
spelling.
But they use that spelling sometimes. So it's supposed to be spelled with a Q.
Yeah, it's a Q.
But I saw that in Strange New Worlds too, and I was like annoyed by it. But it's
well, I can tell you why, because it's Kurtzman Star Trek. Kurtzman is mainly the runner of Strange New Worlds, and he gets away with it because he kind of just stepped into the background for Strange New Worlds because everyone hates him at this point. But yeah, I noticed when they're in the landing craft, they pull out their phasers. They don't look like phasers. They're just like guns. They just look like regular handguns. I'm like, you're not even trying anymore, are you?
Well, this
reminds
is
me a bit of
this is your grandpa's antiquated Star Trek.
Seth, what was your reaction, Seth? We need to get to yours.
Yeah.
So I am another longtime Trekkie. I
think we all are. Like,
yeah. This was a fitting crew for this one. The gray VHSs of Next Gen sitting on my local Wonderbook video and picking one a week. That was me. That was how I got into Star Trek. And walking into this movie, I had liked the first one of this new trilogy, and I liked the third one.
The first one was great.
Mm-hmm. I like the third one in this trilogy a lot.
Beyond is great. Beyond is the proof that they could have had a great franchise. If they
that's the best one, weirdly, of this one. And I never thought that the guy that directed the Fast and Furious franchise would be the guy that would rescue Star Trek.
Well, it's because he let Simon Pegg really write it in the voice of Star Trek.
Yes. People don't ever acknowledge Simon Pegg as people don't ever acknowledge Simon Pegg as like he's a genuinely great writer. Like he really knows his shit.
He's a super fan, and he's an excellent writer. Like, just of his own invention, he is an excellent writer, but he's also a super fan. That makes for exactly who you want to write, at least the first draft of whatever these things are going to be.
Well, also want to throw out, it was co-written with Doug Young.
True. Yes.
And they sequestered themselves in a cabin and just watched Star Trek together to get that first draft out.
As
so
you
I
should.
do want to I do want to say the two of them were very much into it and had a really collaborative, interesting, creative process under stress. Like this movie, like if you look at the writing history of this movie, it was like 4 years before they had a draft.
Yeah, the process of this whole trilogy. I mean, because this is now a trilogy. It's been recently announced that they're not doing a fourth one. The Tarantino script is out the door. Like they're not doing anything more with this cast. I would have liked to have seen the Tarantino script because it was not. Apparently, according to Carl Urban, it was not like Tarantino style. It was just like it's a Star Trek script.
Are you sure there wasn't going to be like 50 scenes with just feet?
You know,
I mean, he probably would have done that with the Orion slave girls, probably, because why not?
What?
But we're not going to get a fourth one with this cast. We'll probably continue it with like comic books. They continue that as well with this cast, but I don't see them going back to this.
Seth,
at all.
back to you.
So my thoughts walking into the movie was actually genuinely being pretty stoked for it. Like regardless of, because I was in the camp of like, oh yeah, it's definitely Khan. I'm not dumb enough to fall for that. I know it's going to be him. So let's see how they deliver on it. So as they're delivering on it, and especially as we get to what is the major flip flop structurally of these two films based on who dies at the end. That when we started to get into that part, I was like, oh, this doesn't just feel like they're trying to do their own thing. I'm very forgiving. I'm of the three hosts, I think the most forgiving of letting people do their own thing. This felt like an aggressive, like double middle finger jumping off into the explosion. Like, fuck you and your granddad's Star Trek. We want new action Star Trek. And I'm not saying I'm opposed to that. One of my big positives is going to be the space Halo jump scene, but like,
but they did it in the first movie. They even acknowledged in the script they did it in the first movie. It's like, yeah, I did it last time, but it was vertical. Like they literally acknowledged they've done this before.
Right.
They cannibalize their own material to create this other film.
Well, and again, I'm okay when it's getting the team back together to essentially do the same thing again, and that's the lampshade joke. But that's not where they decide to end this story either.
Yeah.
And we'll get into the deeper negatives. I would like to force everyone into a positive section.
I feel like this is going to be a long episode.
I'm twisting arms into positives. Hope you must compliment this movie.
There's absolutely positives to talk about with this movie. I mean,
there are.
For one thing, just like we said, the actual cast is very strong in terms of like establishing the characters that they wanted for this.
How did Zoe Saldana get into every fucking major thing? Marvel,
this was like
she
Star
knows
Trek,
the right people.
Avatar. Jesus fuck, I want her career.
Guardians of the Galaxy. Like she's
I said Marvel,
like this is her coming off of like that the same phase that summer was when Benedict Cumberbatch was in everything.
Oh yeah,
Oh god, he was everywhere.
He just did Sherlock, so like that was big.
So she had the right spot where she was hot and like got into everything. Like when Avatar was coming out, because it took so long to make that movie, it was a great opportunity to be like, Avatar's going to be huge. She's the star of Avatar, the real star of Avatar. Everyone's going to be talking about her. Put her in your stuff
because nobody cares about
Guardians of the Galaxy in this.
Because nobody cares about Jake Sully, Jivanish Kiddington with Lindolis.
I was about to say the name, Cersei. Say the name.
The name just keeps getting longer.
Say my goddamn name.
But yeah, I mean, like, we mentioned Anton Yelchin, like, love him. So sorry for what happened with him. Carl Urban is a great bones. Zachary Quinto.
He looks just like DeForest Kelly. Like he looks
and
just like
he's
a young
such a
DeForest
good
Kelly.
imitation too. Like he's
perfect.
stockier than DeForest Kelly. Like he's
he even sets his massive jaw back a little bit.
Yes, I was just thinking that he sets his jaw back
to give a different silhouette. That's a real actor, right? Because that's hard to do. To think like, oh, there's a physicality to lock into and it's subtle. That's a hard thing to do.
Yeah.
I mean, look at his background though. He has the biggest range I've seen.
Mm-hmm. He's on every genre, I think, at this point.
Pretty much.
Yeah, massive nerd god, like underrated as an actor, just has done 100%. So much great stuff. Again, like Zachary Quinto as Spock, like everyone at the time was pointing out, like in terms of doing, here's this very polished version of the TOS cast. I think he does a great job of it. It's different than Peck in Strange New Worlds, and for a series, I would prefer Peck. But like in the movie, Quinto is doing a fantastic job of again. The lens flare bright shiny version of TOS Spock, perfect. And like and there the moments where he's being Spock, like where he's actually being like stoic and like and logical about things, like
the
you
real
get
Spock?
facial expressions from him.
Well, exactly, real Spock.
You get facial expressions from him that are perfect, that are exactly Nimoy kind of stuff, and it's such a good look for the character.
And again, Zachary Quinto is an amazing an amazing actor. He really is. Like there hasn't been a single role of his that I've not liked, honestly.
I don't think anyone's careers have suffered for this series either. Like even for the
I mean, maybe Quinto's kind of gone back to like television and he's doing smaller stuff. He doesn't really do big stuff anymore, I don't think.
No.
He's one of the few people that kind of like receded into the background.
I mean, he's got like 3 movies coming out in the next 3 years, it looks like.
Yeah, well, he did a lot.
But is he the lead?
He did a lot with American Horror Story. He did a lot with that.
Oh yeah.
He's worked a lot with Ryan Murphy lately, so he's been doing a lot more with that stuff.
Yeah, and he's doing fine.
Right.
He's fine. Yes.
Everyone is doing fine.
Nobody left Hollywood because of this. The best thing that happened because of this film, Orsi and Kurtzman split their writing partnership, and Abrams hasn't worked with either of them since then. So we at least got the team to break up.
Yeah.
It's like everybody kind of realized this was a mistake.
We Yoko'd the Beatles.
Yeah.
But it was so required here.
Oh, God. You went there. You fucking went there.
For those that don't realize, Yoko Ono was the one that broke up the Beatles because she was very insistent that John spend more time with her, I think is what it was.
I feel like the joke was right there. Jesse's wearing a t-shirt that is a Beatles parody. So,
but yeah, it's Mary Shelley, Edgar Allan Poe, H.P. Lovecraft, and Bram Stoker, the Beasts.
wow, what a starting lineup. Hope, compliment this film that is not a cast compliment.
Well, you saw what I said in my Discord, right? In the Discord chat. I did. I took a photo of the still of when she's getting changed.
Alice Eve.
Alice Eve
God.
is getting changed, and she's just like, I'm like, oh yes, my goddess. Oh,
Yeah.
yes. Senpai noticed me. God damn.
Yeah.
I think if we're gonna go so far out of our way to compliment people like Chris Hemsworth and Hugh Jackman for getting in,
Everybody is
super-duper-
gorgeous in this cast.
Yes.
those guys get in super duper shape and people freak out about it. Alice Eve is doing exactly that same kind of training for this kind of scene.
Yeah.
And while it is a superfluous scene, if we're going to compliment Hugh Jackman for doing it, we're going to compliment Alice Eve for doing it.
Oh,
she looks great.
You know what bugs me about that scene, though? The fact that she's like, turn around and like they're just talking. It's just sex position. It's just the Game of Thrones style. Like, let's have a thing. And we're in the future. Like, she's just in a bra. Like, it's not. Why does there, like, it would make more sense, honestly, if she was changing and Kirk was having trouble because he was staring, but like she didn't care, kind of thing. The fact that she's like, turn around, and then she like changes, and then like it's
and
just
she's
like,
look at me.
Exactly. It's weird. They're trying to like they're trying to do to have their cake and eat it too. And
I think it's because they also just made the comment she made like, oh yeah, you fucked my friend from school, and he's like, Jana, and she's like, Jenna, or like, fuck the name up,
Christine Chapel.
Yeah.
Chapel, who is referenced in the 2009 film but never shows up. It's like, why is she not here? Like,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
it's worth the alien sex scene for that one.
And this is a character that is from Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. Yeah. And in that story, off screen, she and Kirk had a relationship, and they had a kid.
Yeah,
and like the subplot of that film is him coming to terms with, oh, I'm actually a father, and I'm a deadbeat dad.
Yeah,
like that. It provides more character stuff. Like, again, Wrath of Khan is really fucking good.
Yeah,
in case you didn't know,
echoes of your past ripple into your future is like the thing on display in that movie, and it's I think the biggest thing they whiffed in this one, but.
Yeah, there's a bit that's in Beyond that I really like, which is they're on the third year of their 5-year mission, which, by the way, makes Star Trek Beyond technically the next episode because Star Trek was canceled after the third season. That's technically the next episode. He mentions to Bones, "I'm now older than my father was when he died." And it's like, oh, you've outlived your own father.
Yeah.
Like, you're still young, though. It's like, like, that's an interesting crux for a story. And that's why they were talking about doing another time travel storyline where Chris Hemsworth shows up again, and they eventually jettisoned that because
because he was like a nobody. That's why
he's in that movie for 2 minutes and he's gone. Yeah.
So another positive I think I'd say, obviously, you know me and my fuzzy creatures. I love tribbles. I'm glad they brought in a tribble.
Oh yeah,
little tribble reference. Yeah, that was
little tribble reference. You know how your tribbles in there. So I will. If I'm going to dig deep into positives, though, I have to say so many negatives, but I want to say that I liked that they attempted more of a father-son relationship with how, like, with because Kirk, his father died when he was born, basically,
right.
Yeah.
And so I like how they tried to incorporate like a father-son relationship in the beginning of this film, I guess, to give them more of a grounding.
Yeah, with him and Pike, like, that does work really well.
I
really liked how they developed that, since, like, at this time we didn't have a lot of Pike in canon.
Exactly. Yeah. So I really did like that. They tried to go for something genuine and wholesome, and I think it was good attempt at character development, and I that's what I like. I like a lot of Pike and Kirk, and how like no matter what he always stuck his neck out for Kirk because he was like, this is basically my son, you know. Like for some reason he always felt responsible, like he had to take care of. He, even when he would like be mad at him, he's like, I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed type of deal, you know.
Well, yeah, like internal struggle there is Pike knows he would have done the same thing in many of these situations.
Exactly.
But like, I have to crack down on you because I'm an admiral, but like you're getting off a lot because I understand your heart's in this for fucking real.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's unfortunate that this Pike was never continued in like the traditional Pike where he ends up in a wheelchair, and they hint that he sees his own future in the Strange New World show where he sees himself in that chair from the storyline that's post the Cage episode of the original Trek. So it's nice that they got Ansel Elgort to play the traditional Pike. So, but it's
Anson Mount.
Anson Mount. That's Anson Mount. Yeah. So that is not a name that rolls off the tongue.
No, it's Anson Mount the Fourth, son of Anson Mount the Second, younger brother to Anson Mount the Third.
Wow. I didn't know you could do that. I didn't know you could number the boys further down, but I guess what would stop?
Yeah, it was also different marriages apparently. So, like his dad is prodigious.
So I do
fuckers setting up franchises.
Right.
I will say I do have a crush on Anson Mount, but I loved him from a little movie that no one fucking knows of. I feel.
Is it Crossroads?
No, it's Pool Hall Junkies.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah, you sent me that. Yeah, I still need to watch that. I saw he looks so young in that movie.
Yes, that was my first introduction to him, and I fucking loved it.
Yeah.
Captain
Daddy back in his Sundays.
Case, you said you had another positive?
Yeah, so despite the fact that this whole movie needed like a proofing pass just for like all the tech words and all of just the random gibberish, I think that the opening scene is actually pretty strong overall. There's certainly
it's fun.
There's
Star
certainly
Trek
things
stuff.
to adjust. Yeah, it's got the stuff that J.J. Abrams does well, which is like the good chase scene kind of stuff. He makes a scene have a lot of energy. I think he usually has a hard time making that feel like that energy has a point, but there's a lot of energy in that chase scene. I think that the visuals are really good. The way that they thread the needle on having like a primitive species, but they're actually all like white people, and by that I mean very white people, and they look like people in makeup, but it actually looks like more
in a racist way.
Well, like it's a really interesting way of doing like, okay, it feels like a classic Trek alien, but with better makeup effects, and like and they do have a civilization that we're just they're chasing them into the jungle, but they clearly have buildings and stuff, and like we have a volcano that like the scene with Spock in there is actually pretty intense. I really like the giant armor he's wearing to be inside the volcano. That's pretty cool. Like even the jumping off the cliff and having the Enterprise in the water, I realize that the Enterprise in the water needs more explanation than what we get.
Why?
Again, these are all like very, very basic script fixes. Like again, scratch out the line cold fusion because that is not what those words mean, and replace it with any sort of like cryobomb or anything like that. But that again, that's a pin edit. Like you could even ADR that shit if you really had to.
Oh yeah.
And all of that is stuff you could have fixed with very little work at all. But the overall scene of like, okay, well, we were trying to do this thing, which is a very Star Trek type thing to do. There's going to be a natural disaster that wipes out a sentient species. We want to stop it, but we also don't want to interfere with their society. All that stuff. Good juxtaposition. Very good Trek ideas going into it. The only real Trek stuff going into this movie. And I like how we have that. I like how they remind us what the Private Directive is. I have to say, aliens seeing a spaceship once is not as big of a like interference as some of the other things that you could get in trouble for. So it is weird that it's like taking that seriously.
Yeah,
to that
doesn't
degree.
Kirk at one point go down to a civilization in the original series and read people the Constitution?
Well, but they're spacefaring, so it is slightly different.
But I mean,
well, or they're it's like they're a devolved like primitive state of like of a nuclear species. Like the line is always very kind of blurry.
They're on the cusp of achieving nuclear capabilities. Basically.
Yeah, like I honestly, because like if that happened to humanity, like we would have a bunch of myths about someone in a sky chariot, and that would be it. Like the amount of impact would be different. If tech was left behind, that would be a much bigger deal.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
As far as impact goes.
Although the military has recently revealed that aliens are real and there's UFOs watching us all the time. Does anybody care? Nope. just make my rent go lower, please.
So I did want to bring this up real quick. Everything that is brought up in this movie, like the Prime Directive, the whole time thing, everything. If you want something that's good, watch the 3rd season of The Orville.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It covers the same territory.
That's what I'm saying. Everything, every pinpoint in this movie was covered in at least one episode of the 3rd season of The Orville. If that's my quote unquote, that's my quick fix. Watch The Orville.
If Seth MacFarlane is doing better with the material than you are, you should probably rethink a little bit. You know?
Hasn't Seth MacFarlane cameoed in Trek at some point? I swear he has.
Yeah, he had a cameo in one of the Kelvin movies. I forget. Which.
Okay.
I mean, it might have been Beyond.
No, he also had a small acting role on the.
Oh, that's Enterprise.
Oh, you're right. It's Enterprise. Yeah.
Dracula show, right?
That brings up something I wanted to point out, that this movie is very 9/11 inspired, to the point where it's like they crash a ship into buildings. So it's 9/11. Star Trek has done 9/11 material way better. It was season 3 of the Enterprise. That whole season, Scott Bakula becomes a raging fucking lunatic and is hell bent
Scott
on.
Bakula?
Well, he's generally a nice guy, I've heard. But the what's the crux of the story? Like the opening of season 3, a probe enters Earth's atmosphere and it cuts a line between Cape Canaveral and Tallahassee. Is that what wasn't that what it was?
Oh, I forget.
Yeah, like a huge chunk of Florida gets wiped out.
A huge chunk of Florida. It's like 30 million people died, like that.
Because of the Cindy.
Take me now.
But yeah, that's the point. It's like it's because and it's not just that. It's like it takes out the place where NASA began, Cape Canaveral. Like boom, gone. Yeah. So it's almost like it's an insult to humanity's progress as a species. Wow. Scott Bakula's character of Archer, he basically becomes a right-wing warfaring Republican and goes off and it's like, the NX-01 is the only ship we have. You're now a warship. Go kill them. That's the whole crux of the whole season. And that's kind of where everybody tuned out because they're realizing, you know what? We don't need to relive 9/11. We kind of lived through it all once already. We don't need to see it again.
Right.
And that was the beginning of the end for Enterprise. But I just wanted to point out that
Yeah, that season's not that bad. The thing is, at that point, Enterprise had 4 9/11 episodes, just different 9/11s.
Just not ours.
Right,
just not ours.
Well, they had done them on Earth, including Klingon stuff. But the first 2 seasons were so rough that season 3 was a revamp, which I thought was a marked improvement. But it was this big sequential or serialized story that you had to watch the whole season basically to track it. Yeah. And then season 4 was another revamp, and they kind of got their footing. And then they had a great episode with Peter Weller, who Admiral Marcus in this movie.
Yep. And playing the same character basically.
Basically, yeah. And then they had a really bad finale, and then the series was canceled.
Oh, that fucking finale! I'm still angry about that. The whole thing is a holodeck episode. You know what? Fuck you. Okay? Fuck you. You lazy assholes.
So, Jesse, you have to compliment this film.
Okay. What were we going to say?
I was going to say, I was basically going to be what Seth was about to say. Jesse, we're at that point. We need you to dig deep.
We're here.
Can you please?
In general, I think that visually, I think the movie looks okay, minus the lens flares.
Yeah, I get people not liking the lens flares. They don't bother me as
It's
much.
really obnoxious in this one, dude. To the point where people were making parody posters where it was nothing but lens flares all over the poster. Remember that Age of Ultron poster where it was shit everywhere?
Yeah.
That was what they did with the poster for this movie.
Oh, yeah, I get it. I think overall this is a very well-made film. I think that
from a visual
craftsman,
craftsman standpoint,
from a technological standpoint, yeah.
Yes, this is a good-looking movie.
You can't do this stuff on many of the TV shows. Even the Orville has a hard time going as big as this movie is able to go sometimes.
Yeah.
And that's why,
I argue that Discovery kind of got there. at a certain point. Like,
yeah,
like,
but not every
not watched any
episode, not to the same
recent
degree. Like
stuff,
it's
yeah.
the raw amount of it. Like because I watched this back to back with the finale of Strange New Worlds for season 2, and like there's nothing in Strange New Worlds that looks like that. A big cheaper special effect, but they can only do so many in each episode.
Right.
Versus like this is the whole movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was the budget on this, by the way, Seth?
The budget on this was between 185 and 190 million.
Jesus Christ.
Which, like, for a movie like this, I see it. You know, like that. This is the kind of movie where I'm like, yeah, these are
money's
good
on
bets.
screen.
Yeah, the money's on screen.
Yeah.
It's going right into actors that we like. Like, there's functionally, and there's a lot of goodwill for the series too. I think that a big reason that we're not like absolutely eviscerating it is we love Star Trek. We don't want to be mad at it. You know, this isn't something that we desperately love doing. But
I'm not mad at Trek. I'm just mad at like Kurtzman, Orsi, and Abrams.
Yeah.
They're the ones that are the most to blame.
And so, unless there's any more compliments for the film, I think we're ready to.
Music. I liked Michael Giacchino's score. This is the one time where I could say revamping the main theme actually worked.
Yeah.
Okay.
That da 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 that like rising crescendo that works for me. Like but they still incorporate the original Alexander Courage theme in the end credits. So I like that. You know, it's still there. It's like having a Superman movie, but then still at the very end credits, the Superman theme appears at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's something I liked with the score. Although I will say there are times when I didn't think it was needed, like the death of Kirk, where it just like pushes music down your fucking throat. Mm-hmm. It's like just put it in, just make it quiet, man.
Yeah,
because like I said, Wrath of Khan. I watched it last night. The music is so in the background of the death of Spock,
as it should be.
Mm.
As it should be. It's like it's the death of a major character, and they didn't think at the time that was filmed. Nicholas Meyer wrote in like, "Yes, Spock is dead. We're never bringing him back." And then it was filmed without his permission. The casket, the torpedo casket on Genesis, and it's like, and then he admits on the commentary, "Yeah, I was wrong. It was nice to bring him back." So, just for the one sequence in Undiscovered Country, the 6th movie, where they're building a new photon torpedo as it's going down the launch tube, and he just says, "I'd give good money if he would shut up." just to have Spock say that to shut up. What was that actor? What was it? Christopher. Oh god damn it! What's his name?
Don't know.
Fucking. He was in Knives Out. What was his name? What was the actor? Christopher Plummer. Yeah. Spock said he likes to quote Shakespeare. And, Spock says, "I'd give good money if he'd shut up." It's like, yes, I love that.
Okay, so other thing I would say that is good about this movie, the fact that we actually got a confrontation between Spock and Khan, I think is a question fans have had for a long time. I think that
they never meet in Wrath of Khan. They never meet.
No.
But particularly the question of like, well, where does Khan stand, knowing that we've always established that Spock, being a Vulcan human hybrid, is more advanced physically than a human? So like, what are the power tiers on that one? It was nice to actually set that, just because it's always been an open question, and if you're gonna do it, you might as well. Like it's like fun that we do it. I don't love that it's just like, no, look, they're evenly matched completely. I think it should have been more of a discrepancy. Well, but
that and the fact that he just totally shut off and like went berserk. Like, there should have been some fucking line that Spock should have had instead of just, like, shut down and you know, like...
Hope, it's absolutely within his character to violently beat a man to within an inch of his life. It's absolutely within Spock's character to do that.
Yes, it's logical.
God.
So logical.
Oh, my God. What I absolutely needed at the end of this movie, after Kirk is supposed to die, a goddamn foot chase. Oh, Jesus Christ.
That gets it nice and up close and personal for your actors, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Well,
Yay.
let's get into our notes. What isn't working for us here?
Let me pull out my massive notes list that I made last night.
Jesse sent me this, and it took up like 5 photos worth that he sent me through text. I was like, holy shit.
let me start with just like a very broad strokes one, which is the wasted opportunity of this movie. There are so many huge ones throughout. We'll start off with just the really obvious one, which is that we do this whole rank swap with Kirk, only to have it reversed one scene later. It never matters. There's never a point where any of the action that Kirk takes in the scene is affected by his rank and the fact that he goes from captain of the flagship to first officer. That aside from just like a little bit of like, no, stop calling me captain, like there's nothing that matters related to that scene. And it's annoying that like we don't spend any time with this new status quo before it is immediately reverted.
We do in the dive bar.
Well, but exactly like that. But also that scene could have played out the exact same way because it's still admiral to captain. Like everything would have been.
Yeah.
But the Pike dies a scene later, and he inherits the rank of captain again. It's like. What was the point?
It demotes him to the mood of the scene. Like everything is at the cost of the mood of the scene.
Yes. Yeah. This is a common thing with Abrams and Kurtzman. Whatever works in the moment, that is what you need to know.
Right.
If it don't worry about the rest of the movie forwards or backwards.
Nope.
Just this one moment. Everything's in isolation.
Yeah.
They're
like,
good
just have
scenes,
some time.
not a movie. Like.
Now, while we're on the topic of Rise of Skywalker, I want to get into the...
Shut up, Jesse!
But so, like, it's that wasted potential for everything.
There's no cohesion.
No cohesion between any scene. Back and have this character who, get outside of the characterization is so wildly different, and that his abilities are so, ramped up for this movie, and the fact that it is a British man playing an Indian, like...
Right.
From the 90s, like there's a lot of stuff going on there. But when they're like, oh, we needed someone who could counter the savagery of the Klingon, and the best ideas they had, and I know I'm a broken record on this one, but the best ideas they had was, what about bigger ship? What about faster ship? What about transporters? What about maybe less people on ship? Like, even the USS Vengeance, this big warship that they come up with,
can be run by one person.
Yes, which by itself, like, that's stretching credulity on that one, but like, why does it look the way it does? Why is it a bigger target?
It's bigger and it's black. Can you tell it's the bad guys?
Why doesn't it have more gun banks if it's gonna be this warship that way? If it's gonna have a giant saucer for some fucking reason, have the entire front of it be like armed to the teeth instead of like, we got a couple guns on the bottom just like every other ship.
Like, this is the one moment where I'll compliment the Halo universe with their ship design. All their ships look like giant guns.
Yeah.
Because they're designed for combat.
Right. Yeah.
They're literally giant guns.
At this point, why don't we just make everything Gundams?
Yeah, why are there no Gundams in the Star Trek universe? I've always wondered that. Why are there no mech suits?
Here's the really practical thing they should have had it look like. Something kind of like the Defiant, which is like, here's a gunboat in space. Yes. It's really compact. It has a blade of armor. We've got a lot of cool stuff packed down into it. If you want to make a Wrath of Khan reference, have it look like the Reliant, which is a very similar body plan to the Defiant.
Yeah, but it's still an inferior ship. That's what's cool about Wrath of Khan, is that's a science vessel. Compared to the Enterprise, which is a Constitution class, which is
but
just
the Constitution class is an older ship, though. Like that's what part of the juxtaposition is. Like, here's the more advanced, but like specific, like very focused kind of.
Yeah. But it's not designed for combat.
Right. Like the Constitution classes were like a multi-purpose kind of ship, but like have a ship that is designed specifically for it. And what I'm, honestly saying is that they should have tried to have some actual creativity. Like, the big example, again, we covered this
Star Wars Rebels.
Yeah.
We talked about Into Darkness on my show, Another Pass, which is a similar setup of like, let's repitch it. And I had said at the same time, like,
I don't think you ripped off our shit, dude.
Like, just like Deep Space Nine did such a great job of being like, well, what if there was a sniper rifle with a transporter built into the tip so you could fire the bullet anywhere? Like, what if there were mines that could cloak and replicate, and like you use all the Star Trek technology?
Yeah.
If you're gonna say like, well, Khan is so brilliant, he should be taking systems from Star Trek and integrating them with each other. Yeah. If you want to have a photon torpedo with a transporter built into it, or with warp built into it, like, they never even, like, when they're like, oh, these long-range torpedoes, they could have used the words warp core built into it to make at least that we're combining these different Star Trek things in interesting ways to make weapons that would be
so Doc Brown
innovational.
Well, and then as you're describing this, isn't his plan through much of the movie to blow things up covertly? If he had a photon torpedo, he could warp into a building. that works along
can make
exactly with what they're trying to do here.
If he can make a ring that drops into water just be a nuclear bomb, why can't we have better shit for your torpedoes?
Why is it that the guy does that after the fact? His kid is already saved. Why is he not just call the cops?
I think that was the cost of the antidote blood.
Just call the cops.
The point,
like your kid's already saved. You've already got the blood,
but this guy
there was probably a threat to the kid at that point.
Yeah, like he'll either go kill the kid or he'll go kill you, or like this is a man who is able to get bombs inside of buildings and is willing to do so. Like, yeah. I get why. I get why the guy was like forced into the position. I'm liking Case's pitch better here of a warp photon. That's way more fucking frightening.
Yeah. Has anybody actually ever in the Star Trek universe used a warp core as a nuclear bomb?
That's actually the pilot of Strange New Worlds.
Oh, that's right. That's right. I forgot about that.
See, I have not watched Strange New Worlds yet, so
also, it's good. Genuinely good.
It's a minor spoiler that someone makes a weapon out of a warp core.
Yeah, isn't it? The Gorn or at war, and Pike intervenes by accident, something like that.
I don't want to fully explain this one because, like, if I explain more, then that does start to get into big spoiler territory. But
it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah, it's a good episode, but like, yeah. But point is, you could do cool stuff with it. I had proposed previously, well, what if they had like spacesuits that had warp so that you could have like shock troops arrive on a ship or something inside their shield range. Mm-hmm. So do stuff with it all.
Yeah.
But they have all these, like, the innovations they present break the rules of Star Trek. They create a scenario where you can have a personal device that you have with you on Earth and arrive on Kronos. Like, they have all these. Oh
God, that fucking pissed me off so much.
Like, all the rules of Star Trek are out the window once you introduce these like super advanced technologies, as opposed to innovative technologies, as opposed to cool interacting things.
Like, Kirk calls Scotty on Earth while he's out near Kronos on his little fucking cell phone. His fucking communicator. Like, do you understand distance and time dilation? God damn it!
So the whole you can warp anywhere now technology, I refuse to believe that was invented as a like sci-fi thing. That was invented as a writing thing, so they can put characters anywhere they need, anytime they want, and that's lazy writing.
Hey,
lazy.
That is a device for lazy writing.
So Jesse, I know what you're saying with the communicator thing.
Yeah.
But when you said that, it brought something up of one scene I will totally forgive, and that's in Galaxy Quest when
that's right.
He communicates with the Forge Engagers.
You're right.
So like,
God damn it.
I have to forgive that because I love Galaxy Quest so much.
Damn it. Son of a bitch.
Took that one away from you.
All right, I'll let it slide. If you can transport anywhere, you can talk anywhere. It's fine.
But also the talk is less of an issue because they've always had subspace. They've always been able to get messages to Earth or whatever. It would just have to be like relayed through a ship. I think
it was. Wasn't it created by Orson Scott Card with Ender's Game? The Ansible is a means of communication long distance with the ship, the fleet that's way out there, that's been out there for like 100 years.
Yeah.
And then the Ender is communicating with them, and in the present.
Yeah.
Well, that was that specific iteration of that, but the idea of having infinite range communication isn't completely weird. It's going back to the idea of like ghost particles, where you can have like shared information being conveyed at two different points instantaneously, bypassing the speed of light.
Yeah.
So again, like, I have to forgive the communication parts just because like it's a lot more feasible than transporting something than to transport basically a radio wave. I feel like that can at least be boosted a lot easier than like physicality.
In my head, they're just cutting out the parts where like he makes the call and then gets patched into a ship and then gets patched across and down, and they're just cutting all that out and saying like, oh,
and just
you're
like
just seeing
5
the call
satellites, like boosting. So like I can forgive that as.
Which, like, I would love to see that stuff, though. That's what makes John Wick's universe so cool, right? Is that they take the time to, like, show you, oh, yeah, this is how this would play out.
It's what makes Star Trek's universe so good. The limitations of technology, and they have to overcome it with intelligence. And now it's just like, oh, instantly we fix everything.
This movie isn't about intelligence, though. It's not.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Just because you have a British guy talking for Khan doesn't mean it's intelligent. It doesn't.
Hope, what's not working for you in this film? Did you do a recent rewatch for this episode? Did anything really grab you?
Of course I did. No, of course I did. I always do a rewatch and torture myself.
Did you drink while you were doing it?
Unfortunately, no. I was at work, so.
Yeah.
So she got paid to watch it. That's right. That's
damn right. Well, I fucking work the system with this shit, man.
That's right.
So a lot of the things that didn't sit well with me was basically a lot of what Starfleet is. Like they bypassed a lot of the peace. Like Starfleet has always been about peace, knowledge, and like communication. That's always been the thing. And the fact that they just jumped so quickly into militarization is a huge no-no for me, because Starfleet's supposed to be in a future where we all coexist peacefully, where there's no classes, so to say. You know, we've solved a lot of the world's problems. We've solved all this stuff, and we're trying to go out and learn to improve our lifestyles, you know, and a lot of that is not militarization. A lot of it is like defensive. You know, obviously there's going to be threats, outside threats that we don't know of, and we do have to protect. But that's like a last resort, not guns blazing out of the fucking shit, you know. And
there's like a base optimism to other Star Trek that is like at core, everyone in the fleet believes that peace can be achieved. Like that is like a core tenet and value that has to be carried by the captain.
Even within this universe, the Enterprise series still happened, because you see the little statue of the NX-01 in Admiral Robocop's office. So
that's the thing. For an admiral, for an admiral of Starfleet to be so, it'd be one thing if it was someone lower who from the get-go like worked his way like that. If you're going to do something like that, it should have been someone who was lower ranked, and then Pike took in as his like first in command because his ratings were off the charts, but he secretly was like very military forward. And then there's the whole thing where Kirk got to first helmsman, but like he was on a different ship, and there should have been something like that. It should not have been an admiral who was already so deep into the militarization. It should have been like.
Have you seen Star Trek Beyond? That's literally the plot you're describing.
Yeah.
My point.
Yeah, it's literally
right.
It's literally,
my point.
Literally, Idris Elba's character is literally just some guy that was on a ship. What was it, the Yorktown? I think is what it was.
Yeah, but that's my point. Like that's how it was done, and that's how it should have been done.
Yeah.
The fact that it's already been done, but it could have been done on that's my point.
Well, like Star Trek has a long history of like the bad admirals. They're often used, especially in Next Gen, where like Picard has to kind of deal with them.
Yeah.
They're often used as sort of like hawkish figures that like
even the original series, there was that character that was going after the Doomsday Machine.
True.
Yeah, so the presence of a bad admiral isn't by itself that much of an issue, but throughout this whole movie, I kept on thinking. On this rewatch, I kept thinking about how they keep talking about the Klingons and that they don't set them up very well as the Cold War analog that they are supposed to be. Because in the US era, they were directly meant to be.
I guess that's my point, honestly, is because he was so pro-military, but there was no build-up for that.
Yeah,
like, literally
We needed
no
like a Klingon
build-up.
incursion at the start. Like after the opening sequence, we needed some sort of news about Klingons on the border, or like some colony was lost. We need some kind of detail about that to indicate that this like standoff with the Klingons is currently happening, and that there is a lot of friction. And honestly, we need a lot of characters talking about it. Like the fact that we just have Admiral Marcus. Honestly, every time an incident occurs, the first question should be, was it the Klingons? Like when the Section 31 base blows up, you should have had a character being like, someone blew up the archives. Was it the Klingons? Like that should have been the logic, so that we set the seed that everyone is on that beat. Because at the end of the movie, or really at the end of the second act, when Marcus is trying to make his like final claim about the Klingons and how he needs to be the one to like protect Starfleet from this whole situation, we need to have it feel like it is a compelling argument for everyone on like in the movie. But at the moment, the only person who seems bothered by the Klingons is Marcus himself.
Yeah, because there's no active threat, because everyone else is saying, oh, they're in deep space, they're on the border, they haven't touched us. It's just if we happen to tiptoe across the line, you know. So how is that a credible...
if we happen to fire missiles at their homeworld,
right?
So they never even mentioned the neutral zone. They never even mentioned the armistice line between the two.
And that's what I'm saying. I think that's the biggest thing. The fact that they did such a jump to militarization without any threat. There was no threat whatsoever. Like, it's just this.
You could have done. You could have done the intro as we got it, with just the additive of this planet is in the neutral zone, the Vulcans are here too, and now we're having to like do this three-way communication thing between the ground team, the Starfleet, and the Vulcans, and show the Cold War status that is happening in the very
you guys are literally talking about Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country. This is literally the plots where they're going to frame the Klingons for an assassination of a Starfleet official.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Like, this is literally the plot of an actual movie that already exists, which was the final film of the entire original cast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
take some...
This shit has been done before. It's like, why couldn't they do that? Like, I'm
that's
fine
the
with
point.
like...
I wouldn't mind a reboot if it's makes sense.
Had a point. You know,
it makes sense.
I think the biggest thing about this movie is that some of those earlier Star Trek works, though, again, were coming out of the Cold War. Like a
lot of shit
like
was.
The Undiscovered Country is the wrap up movie to the Cold War era, and thus it feels like we can actually have like we have come through it. We are on the other side. Let's have just sort of like our final treatise on it all. And this movie is coming so much further beyond that point that the general audience isn't as keyed into the thought of like that looming threat of a hostile power just across like some sort of unspecified border.
Right.
The world that this movie came out into was a world of weird police actions and a very different concept of war.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Post 9/11. Exactly what we need to deal with Star Trek.
Right.
Seth, you had your hand up a second ago. Did you have
I was communicating to my webcam because it had switched into robot mode instead of.
Speaking of war, I have a war on pollen right now. That's why I keep scratching my nose. God damn.
Oh my god, I feel you.
Your nose is very red right now.
Because I'm scratching it because of the pollen. I just did yard work. I just did yard work yesterday, and so like pollen fucking. So I'm like, God damn it, my nose.
So, what else is not working for us on this? Jesse, regale us with some of your notes.
I'll give you my top 5. Why hasn't Kirk been booted out of Starfleet at this point?
Right.
Like, you literally violated the Prime Directive in like 5 separate ways on that other alien planet. Why have you not been kicked out? They just keep giving him a pass every time. No one follows the rules of Starfleet.
Pike loves them.
Oh, God. Another thing. Why are Kirk and Spock friends?
I have a second question to that one, or a part 2, which is how are they friends?
Yes, they barely spend time together.
That's one of my big notes about this movie, because in the previous movie, that's them meeting and having friction. This movie hinges on them being friends, but we actually never have a scene of them being friends.
Yeah, the entirety of the original series never occurred. So we're jumping right into their best friends. Why?
Well, yeah, and the argument is it's because Kirk was willing to violate the Prime Directive to save Spock.
His crew. Basically, it's not even just for his friend, it's for his crew. So that's a whole different argument at that point. That's just him caring about his crew, not a friend.
Like that's fine as long as we establish that he does really care about Spock. Like we needed a scene where they were talking before they wrote the reports, you know?
Right?
Or when it came out, and have them kind of interacting, like the second pilot for Star Trek, where No Man Has Gone Before pilot, where we introduce Kirk and Spock together playing chess with each other and having like a little bit of repartee about the differences between like humans and Vulcans.
Yeah.
Like, we needed a scene kind of like that, and I have some pitch notes, but we needed something like that early in the movie to be like, oh yeah, they are actually friends, even if they bicker.
Yeah.
They could have even been like, we just grabbed a drink at the bar. What the fuck? Or he could have even been like, when did you send the report? We were drinking last night. Like, something stupid like that.
Is that what you were typing? Like,
right.
I thought you were...
I thought
you said you were taking notes at...
I thought you and Uhura were just having a really bad argument over text. Like, what?
And what's funny is Chris Pine is good at doing those kinds of characters, too.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like having him have a deadpan Spock to bounce off of, you have absolute comedic gold there if you care about your characters.
Oh, he was brilliant in D&D.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Fucking brilliant.
I mean, like, can you imagine a scene, like, first off, can you imagine if Spock was, like, an IPA guy or something, and so he's having, like, this conversation about, like, the alcohol in this one is particularly high proof. I can see how it would survive the journey from England to India. And then, like, he's taking notes on that, but at the same time, he's sending the report that's, like, stabbing Kirk in the back. And it's like, I thought you were just taking notes. I was. I had 2 tabs open.
Right, exactly. See, that would have been something funny like that they could have done, you know? We're like, this is supposed to be a 9.7%, yet I feel no inebriation whatsoever. I don't know if it's due to the metabolism of my species, or I need something, like, something.
And then Kirk's just knocking him back.
Right, just like, I need another round.
Well, no,
in the universe
Budweiser, because he clearly is a huge fan of Budweiser from the first movie.
Right.
Well, in the universe of Star Trek, they have, what is it, Synthahol? Where it's
Not
like,
at this point. That was developed.
Oh, that's right. That's next gen.
Yeah,
That's next gen.
because Scotty was not familiar with it when he was frozen in time and then woke up in TNG time.
Wish away the effects of a hangover with just a thought. It's like, okay, that kind of defeats the point of drinking, but all right, fine.
Who doesn't
Another issue I had. This isn't really an issue. It's just something I found as a funny coincidence. So I pointed this out to Seth. So recently they announced who the new version of the Punisher is going to be in the Marvel Universe. Mm-hmm. Guess what his name is supposed to be? John Harrison, which is the code name they gave to Khan in this film. And there's a moment in Garth Ennis' run on the mainstream Punisher.
We're breaking case.
He's striking. He's striking.
We're breaking case.
He's breaking out the scotch.
Yeah, gotta do it, man.
Right.
Yes.
So this is the Ingle Red single cask single malt scotch, 11 years, 118 proof.
Wow.
Yeah.
Case
well,
about
in that case,
Agent of California red wine cask.
Fuck yeah.
Well, in that case, cheers.
Cheers.
I'm still going to be using my Marvel superheroes, Kevin.
Who cares that shit?
There you go.
Makes sense. So anyways, in the new Punisher series that's coming out from Marvel, they've announced the new Punisher is going to be an ex-SHIELD agent named John Harrison. Because I'm guessing that because SHIELD is meant to be the police force of the Marvel Universe, they're going to do the ACAB version. Like, this version is going to go after corrupt SHIELD agents.
Yeah.
That's the version. Because Frank is now in Weird World. He's gone. He's not part of the Marvel Universe anymore.
Yeah.
There's a part in this movie where Khan traps all the head generals of Starfleet in one room in a skyscraper with open windows.
Yeah.
As you do, you know,
as you do in secret meetings, as opposed to underground where no one's going to see you,
or you know, on one of their ships where they can secure,
or one of the ships in the middle of nowhere with all that transwarp capability. You think you could do that, but he traps them all in one room just so he can kill them. There's a moment in Garth Ennis' run on the Punisher where he calls all the heads of mafia groups in New York City to one location, and he calls one of them and he says, "Why would I want all of you in the same place at the same time?" And the final page of that issue is him standing at the top of a set of stairs with a squad assault rifle.
Oh my god!
Yep.
It's literally the same scene. This has nothing to do with Star Trek. It's just a funny coincidence.
And they named him John Harrison.
And they named him John Harrison. It's the same exact fucking scene.
Wow.
Yeah. That scene happened in Voyager too, actually. Like the get everyone in one room together and then have a shuttle like try to take everyone out.
Yeah.
Handled better. This scene is dumb. Like the whole like
yes.
There was a random explosion, so Starfleet regulations puts us all in this room together.
Yeah.
In an exposed spot. Like, I don't know how... Like,
where people can literally see you through the windows.
Right.
It's like a board meeting at Facebook. Like, come on, man. You can try harder than this. Another issue I have with the movie. Oh man. So, why exactly? This is just a nitpick. So, I liked the moment in the 2009 film where the view screen in the Enterprise cracks and Kirk is like, do it! It's like that moment just like building up, like, oh my god, the view screen's going to crack and they're all going to suck down into space. Nice moment. This is the biggest nitpick, fanboy bullshit I will ever point out, and I apologize for doing this.
Oh no.
There is no glass on any of these ships. It is transparent aluminum. I know Hope is looking at me like, man, the Hope is like, wow, fuck you right now. I get it.
Here's the thing. So my grandfather is one of the top-rated pilots, like, in the world. He actually has an award for flying for over 60 years without crash landing or anything. Yeah. So I know on how any airplane, spacecraft, anything is supposed to be made. And, like, so I'm agreeing with you, like, because I'm thinking, like, I know all of this, like, for a fact. I've been taught by one of the best in the world. So yeah, I get it.
Yeah, I just like why do they put glass on these ships?
Well, it was my understanding that there wouldn't even need to be glass. You would just have a view screen there and then cameras on the outside to pipe the video.
That's what it is. That's what it is on the Enterprise D.
Yeah. That, like, it doesn't actually make sense that the helm, that the command bridge is on, like, the most exposed part of the ship. Like, why wouldn't it be, like, buried in the middle?
That's even pointed out in one of the Halo novels. This is back when I was still into Halo. I think it's in Fall of Reach, where they're talking about the Pillar of Autumn, the main ship from the first game.
Yeah.
They say, like, the command center of the ship is at the bottom of the ship on the front side. And they say, oh, there's exposed windows everywhere. And Captain Keyes in the book says, well, it is kind of unfortunate that we have an exposed view of everything, but damn, what a view. It's like, if somebody took one shot at that with a sniper rifle in the middle of deep space, you're dead. Just gone.
Yeah.
Gone. So it's like, it's kind of stupid to have glass everywhere.
Deep space sniper assassin sounds so cool.
Hey, that'd be really good as an idea for this story.
I was going to say, that's a great video game right there.
Right. Yeah. My other big negative, Magic Blood. Fuck you, Kurtzman. This is the beginning of the first of, like, 4 times you have done this trope. He did it in The Mummy. He did it in Amazing Spider-Man 2. This motherfucker, I swear to God, has used this trope so many fucking times. I hate it. It is bullshit. It's lazy writing, and it makes no sense. Like, what? Like, Kirk asks Bones, like, why are you putting that blood into that tribble? It's like, well, Khan's blood apparently has some kind of regenerative properties. I'm going to put it into this tribble. Why?
Yeah. And also, why then? Like, that scene feels such first pass at, I need a primer for the explanation that's going to happen later, or just a reminder, because we got it earlier in the movie. But where they're like, well, this is why we know that this would be a thing that we could try. And again, that feels like, fuck it, tribbles. Like, as the reason for that scene right there. But why would you do that when the ship is about to go down?
Yeah.
To set up that we can somehow resurrect Kirk at the end of the movie.
I mean, but that was set up at the very
yes,
beginning,
exactly.
though.
The meta reason makes sense, but the actual in-world reason doesn't.
Yeah.
I'd like to point out that this trilogy of Star Trek movies is eerily similar to the new Star Wars trilogy that we got.
Oh, yeah.
To the point where the third movie writes out the entirety of the second installment.
Yeah.
Like, hey, magic blood that can save everybody. Oh, no, we don't even mention that in the next one.
Yeah, we haven't spread that one out through outer space yet.
Carol Marcus is going to be part of the Enterprise group. Nope, she's not even in Star Trek Beyond. She is gone.
Which was disappointing, but
yeah, but it's just like a lot of stuff they just wrote out. And they just said, you know what? forget that even happened. Just jump right from 2009 to beyond. You don't need to watch this. Nothing. There's no consequence. Kirk becomes captain of the Enterprise again, regardless.
Right.
Yeah, nothing.
But the
nothing.
difference between Star Trek and Star Wars, when we're talking about the Abrams trilogies, is that
Rise of Skywalker is bad.
Right. Is that Rise of Skywalker is like, well, what if you had a good second movie and you're like, no, we want to get rid of that. We have to like just nuke this franchise.
We said Last Jedi is pretty good by comparison to Rise of Skywalker.
Last Jedi is by far the best of that new trilogy and like is at least doing some interesting stuff. There
I'm
are
with
problems
Case
with that
on
movie
that
too. But
you mean Last Jedi? You said Rise of Skywalker.
Last Jedi is I meant Last Jedi is as a movie that has some pacing problems. There's a couple of issues with it, but overall it's doing very interesting stuff. Rise of Skywalker is just like nuking the whole franchise.
I would also argue that Last Jedi is a better Star Trek movie than this. Like, if you slap the Last Jedi plot into Star Trek, I'd watch the fuck out of that Star Trek.
No, it's a Battlestar Galactica episode. I pointed this out.
Yeah.
It's the episode 33.
It's 33. Yeah,
it's 33. That's all it is.
Or it should have been more like 33 because that at least was tense. Like that was the problem with that space chase. Like it was
not tense. It's not tense at all. It's boring.
Too slow for
I'm out.
the intensity that they want. But I will hand you a bottle through the screen.
Yeah. Doggies.
So
I'm going to across the country teleport it the way that
you warp core it. Warp core it. No, my dogs are upset I'm even out.
Yeah, I'd say the biggest problem with this movie is that it's Khan as a threat. Like, you want to bring back Khan, fine. Okay, fine. I get it. I understand.
About it, would do it. Sure.
Be honest about it. It's like, but the problem is, like, Khan maybe it's because I watched Wrath of Khan again last night. Like, Khan comes off as brash and like impulsive, and he comes off as very kind of not unhinged. He's not like Silence of the Lambs. This version is Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah.
The one that like Ricardo Montalban's performance is flamboyant. He's over the top. He's full of himself. He's egotistical. He's like that shirt spread wide open. Like Ricardo Montalban like just lifts Chekhov up with one arm.
I'm sorry. All I can think about right now is Jay Baruchel in Fanboys when he has like this shit on his face. He's like, "You mean Ricardo Montalban?"
But yeah, it's like that version. It's like the battle that's in the Nebula, in was it the Matara Nebula at the end of that movie, where it's like the two ships kind of like in like ship combat with each other.
Yeah,
like it's so much more tense than the Vengeance, like catching up to the Enterprise, just like knocking it out of orbit. It's like it just feels so. They knock these ships around so much. It's like, why has no one just like instantly just died? Why is the ship just not like collapsed like tinfoil?
That or just like straight up
fucking big,
straight up whiplash to the point of breaking your neck. Like goddamn,
right.
like
yeah, like they just. Getting knocked out of warp like that, it's like slamming on the brakes at a car that's going 1,000 miles an hour. Everyone would die instantly.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Whiplash where it breaks your neck, like that. It's
a little too intense.
Yeah. It's this is a movie that is set at level 10. It's like it reminds me of Quantum of Solace, where your foot is on the gas so much for so long it becomes white noise, so you forget the plot as you're watching it. This is like. Could this be called a non-movie because it's basically non-functional between every scene?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned Quantum of Solace because I was looking. I doubled back into the production history of this movie to see if this was in any way impacted by the 2007-2008 writer's guild strike, and obviously it wasn't.
It was
based on production time, but I was curious about it because this movie feels so first drafty that I was wondering if that kind of impacted it, because Quantum of Solace was like the problem with that movie was that they had to go into production and they couldn't do rewrites once they had once they were in production. So like, Craig and the director were like coming up with shit on the fly, but for the most part they were kind of like stuck with it, and they couldn't like really make any new scenes to like bridge anything that was missing or anything like that. This movie has the same problem, but it's just because they have hack writers that don't know what the fuck they're doing on this whole thing. Jesse, I'm glad you brought up Khan though, because we need to spend some time talking about Khan. Aside from the fact that he's whitewashed in the worst possible way, and again, having the colonizer having the name and taking the race of a character. Like, sure, Ricardo Montalban was not Indian. And like, but it's the 60s. He was at least brown. There's like, it could have been a lot worse in terms of how they handled that one.
You literally have
like,
a British person.
Right. It is colonialism in your casting, which is like kind of fucked up.
Yeah.
But then he doesn't act like Khan because Khan is suave. Khan is interesting. Khan in Wrath of Khan, like his crazy rage comes from being trapped on a planet for 15 years with most of his people dead, including his wife. Like, and only having like 2 books to read, which is why he keepes fucking quoting like Moby Dick nonstop, because like that's one of the 4 books on his shelf. Like, like that's all you have for that character. He's gone crazy.
Well, what are the books? It's Paradise Lost, Moby Dick. What are the other ones?
I'd have to bring it up.
But anyways, he's psychologically
it's like
he's tormented.
He literally has the classics, which you know.
Yeah, which like. That's a great setup for that character, for why he's so crazy in that universe. In this universe, he's fresh out of it. He's, you know, when he left Earth, he was a dictator. And if you look at Space Seed, he's got all this like charm and so forth. And he's like, I just hope they don't I hope they don't crack open a history book. That's why I can't give them too much info. But no one just knows who he is off the top of their head. But he's interesting and charming, and this character is just so different from that. Like, if you look at this character, he would make more sense as, like, a Vulcan who's been radicalized by the destruction of planet Vulcan. Or...
That makes so much more sense.
In my another past pitch, and this is not really, like, this would be way too much to try to explain in a movie. You know what would be really fun? If it was a time-traveling lore. Like, if it was, like, lore from the future... Because that also would fit, and Benedict Cumberbatch would be great casting as...
that's beautiful. That's
exactly.
Beautiful.
Well, I mean, we've already got lore in Picard season 3, which wraps up that series.
Yeah.
Which, if you want like traditional Star Trek at this point, Picard season 3.
Right, but again, this
if
is
you
not
want to watch
this is well
season 1 or
before that all
2. Just
happens.
skip right to 3.
But let me throw out a character who'd be really good for this exact spot: Sybok.
Ooh, there you go.
What was Sybok?
Spock's fully Vulcan brother.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Have him
have been radicalized by the destruction of Vulcan and like is now a terrorist, and that makes so much more sense.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so in the conversation around Khan, specifically around how they wrote him, I'm about to break y'all's brains. Did you know that he is scene for scene shot almost identically as the Dark Knight's Joker?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All on purpose. Like, ugh.
Like, he hires other people to do his dirty work starting off, right? Wants to get captured so that you can have the interview, the interrogation scene like Dark Knight, and then resolves by getting the shit beat out of him up in the air.
Yeah.
The key word here, Seth, is lazy.
No, yeah, it is. Yeah. It is. That's why he doesn't feel like Khan, because they said, "Oh, we're just going to do the Joker instead."
This movie is such a product of its time. Everything about it feels like exactly all the tropes of the movies 2 years prior.
But that's the thing. None of this is, again, from my beginning argument, none of this is Star Trek.
Yeah. Oh no. Yeah.
That's
absolutely.
The thing. That's the thing.
My grand theory on Star Trek as to whether or not it's going to be a good movie is if it makes sense as a Navy film first. That's these are to answer your question from earlier, Jesse. The reason there's no mech suits is because these are Navy films just set in space.
That's a good point. Yeah.
The function is to have big ships and crews. That's why the ship being able to pilot itself is such a middle finger to Star Trek, because it's like, no, these are.
What's the point?
It's like Pirates of the Caribbean. Like in the very first movie goes, yeah, you can't do a ship with just one person. Like literally, that is the point of all this. You can't do it with one person.
Yeah, like what happens if the part of the ship breaks? Who's gonna fix it?
Right. So like
you can't run on one ship with one person.
The first film and the third film make sense as Navy films. Like either Navy at port at war in the third one, or in the first one just as straight up Navy films. They make sense as Navy films. This middle one is space adventure with Star Trek IP slapped on it.
It feels a lot like Lost in Space. Even the landing craft. The landing craft that they get when they land on Kronos looks exactly like the ship from Lost in Space. It's exactly the same ship, and I'm like, I've long assumed that Abrams is a hack. I've long assumed, like, and Abrams, when this movie, in retrospect, he recently came out and said, yeah, I made some mistakes, and the writing wasn't as solid as I could, so I had to keep jumping between things, try to keep you invested in the movie. It's like, just admit that your writers fucked up. He never takes blame himself.
No.
He always passes blame to other people, so that way he doesn't take the brunt of the problem. Like what has Robert Orsi done in the last, like, I don't know, like 5 to 6 years? Like, what has he done?
Yes.
Oh, The Mummy was his last
checking because
film.
I'm not actually sure.
No, yeah, the Mummy was his last film.
That's Kurtzman. The other one, Orsi, is apparently the Star Trek guy. Kurtzman is just the dumb writer guy.
No,
This is why they split. This is why they split their writing partnership. This is why they split their writing partnership, because Orsi realized, wow, this guy's not a good writer. I'm not going to work with him anymore.
Yeah.
No, Orsi is listed as uncredited writing and an executive producer on The Mummy. So, like, that's his last thing.
Shit! Wow.
No, but listen, we knew that one was not going to be good.
Yeah.
Man, that's really bad. That's a shame, because apparently Orsi is like the Star Trek guy. He like knows everything about Trek, and he had to like drag Kurtzman along for some fucking reason to go and do Star Trek. Why Orsi was apparently supposed to direct Beyond, and then he had to drop out because the studio wouldn't give him the money he wanted.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Let's wrap up our issues with.
I was about to say we've been going on a long time about issues.
Yeah, this was an extra long one. We knew this was going to be a 2-hour episode. The one I want to land on is the flip in the original film, as I want to call it, in The Wrath of Khan.
Wrath of Khan.
Spock dies. They have flipped that for this one.
Yes.
They've lampshaded it by putting the original Spock in this film.
That was fucking insulting.
How do we
That was
feel?
the final film role of Leonard Nimoy. That is a shitty note to go out on.
At least it was Star Trek. That's my. He got to go out. In Star Trek.
know, but like, fucking
Remnants of a Better Time.
That's my man.
Everybody, when I saw this in the theater, everybody applauded like, "Hey, it's Leonard Nimoy!" It's like jangling keys in front of a baby. It's like, God.
Case, how about you? How do you feel about the flip flop to have Kirk die instead? Can that work? Is that an insult to the story on top of the dishonesty about the story?
I'll admit it bothered me more when I first saw it, particularly because it was like alongside the whole like, oh, it is actually Khan. Fuck, they lied to us explicitly.
Yeah.
Right.
That bothered me more than rewatching it now. The things that bothered me were the sequence itself kind of bothered me because of course Kirk's version of fixing the reactor is like, well, what if I kick it a bunch of times?
So by the way, that bugged me. So I'm a former gymnast, and my specialty was
He kicks it down. He kicks it down. Mm-hmm. He doesn't kick it side. He just kick it down.
My specialty was uneven bars. You need to have a swinging motion to fucking do that shit. And he literally is kicking down. Like, how is kicking down gonna move it sideways? Like,
yeah, he should have actually been facing the other direction and kicking at least backwards with his.
Well, from the pipe, he should have been doing like a swing. If he could have been doing like a swing into it, that way it would have shown momentum, because he had built up momentum as he was kicking into it, which would have made sense. And the whole like it just the whole thing should have just it just bugged me so much.
Yeah.
Well, at least get coverage, like get a close up of the shot where the thing moves in the direction you want it to move, because up until like the music swells and he gets it right finally, like it hasn't there's been no evidence that he's doing anything successful with this, and then all of a sudden it just works, which movie telling, movie magic, yada yada yada, but like in of course comparing it to Wrath of Khan is unfair, but at least in Wrath of Khan, Spock is doing his role. He's one, a science officer, and two, he's
it's totally fair. This is a remake of Wrath of Khan. Right. It's a shitty remake. It's totally fair.
But like Kirk is also not an idiot. Even this version of Kirk isn't an idiot. He has good test scores. Like that's like one of his whole things that he's like just not applying himself. But like him actually doing something to make it work, like having some sort, MacGyvering some situation to get it in position would have been way more interesting instead of just like, yeah, exactly, instead of just way brute forcing it, which we've established his brute force is not that effective in this movie. So
again, like Spock would have been better to be in there doing it.
Right. But
they pointed that out in the 2009 film when the drill is drilling into the planet. They land on it using the skydiving sequence. They in Star Trek jargon, they'd be like, "Oh, well, let's like recouple." It's like in the commentary track, Abrams just says, "Why don't we just shoot it?" And so they just shoot the fucking thing.
But
so
even shooting this would be better. Do
it again.
You're not wrong.
Yeah, I really feel like flipping the roles and like copying the ending of Wrath of Khan just word for word, like that was a fucking insult. Fuck you. That was bullshit. That was a lie. Like,
yeah,
it feels like is this cultural gaslighting? Is this manipulation to me? It just feels like
hold on. It's the meme with the guy and the butterfly. Is this what this is?
Yeah. Is this manipulation?
If anybody gets a chance to talk to J.J. Abrams, ask him, why did you lie about Khan? I want a direct answer.
For what reason?
Is it because you want to treat us like kids? Just say that. Just say like you wanted to treat us like kids.
Yeah.
So it would be a surprise. But like, be honest about it, because it's silly.
My first question to him would just be why ellipses, and see which thing he fills in the blanks for.
Right.
Like, what thing is like looming over his career that he's like, what? Why Rise of Skywalker? Why this? Why fucking Super 8? Like,
well, I mean, that's the worst part. Is like I think he seems like a nice guy, but just as a storyteller, he is terrible at his job. And he's one of those directors that fails upwards. Like, oh, as long as the money keeps coming in, it's fine. It's like, oh yeah, you could. It's like Michael Bay. It's like, oh, you could just as money keeps coming in. Oh, fuck it, it's fine. They will hire you again. It's like,
honestly, Abrams, if he was just producer and DP, would be a great spot for him to be in. Like, I think he's an idea guy, scene really well, and he can have a broad idea. But like, it's just that cohesion point that is missing of everything he's ever done. Like the best work he does is usually having good energy and good high concept stuff. But like in terms of actually getting into the heart of any of the characters, that's usually what's lacking.
Yeah.
Well, let's take a quick break here. I think this is a good spot to kind of wrap up our review.
I'm out. I need to get more ice.
Me too.
And you know what? Maybe as I'm thinking about it, maybe they weren't lying when they said this is not Khan, right? Like, from what we've discussed in this review, technically, where is Khan within this? I
think isn't it inferred like in one of the pods that like this is actually a guy pretending to be Khan. They kind of explain his origin, like this is not the real guy, but it's somebody else.
Sure.
Pretending to be him.
That might be in like some supplemental material, but there's nothing on screen.
I'm not doing the homework is the answer.
Yeah, that's the thing. If it wasn't on screen, it didn't happen. I'm not looking into it. I don't care.
Well, yeah, let's take a quick break. When we come back, I think Case has some pitch notes, and then I've got a little sidewinder pitch for us to wrap this up. A nice little easy softball in the Star Trek area that I think you guys will like. I'm curious to see. So we will be right back. Welcome back to the show. Jesse has brought up, we may have missed one final question about the film before we go into our pitches. So Jesse, what's your burning one?
Hold on.
So Marcus,
real quick, Jesse, I know you. Is this a final one or a final one or a final one?
I promise this is the last one.
Okay, because I fucking know you.
Is this the real jumbo slice or the real actual jumbo slice? The real actual jumbo slice?
Exactly.
So my last issue is that Marcus says he wants to get rid of Khan, just kind of clean up the issue of the fact that waking up Khan was a bad idea. Why doesn't Marcus go do this himself? Why does he hire Khan? Why does he hire Kirk to do it? And why does he give him 72 torpedoes to kill one guy? Torpedoes that are filled with people, which register life signs if you looked at them correctly. Why does he not just go do it himself? He's an admiral. Why not just go do it yourself?
Well, I'm
You're
glad
building
you
a
asked.
secret ship.
Plausible deniability? I don't.
You're building a secret ship with Section 31, the subsect of Starfleet. Why not just go do it yourself? No one's gonna know. No one even knows this guy even exists.
True.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's one of those things where say it with me,
Jesse,
because the
movie
movie needed to happen. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
You know, if I had to rely on that with every single scene, maybe you should rewrite your script.
Right.
Yeah, the torpedoes thing is such a first draft. We have this basic idea where we can shout out the number of people that were on the Botany Bay, and then we can have that illusion, and it can be like, here's the MacGuffin that like is the bartering ship that the Enterprise has with Khan at that point, blah 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 blah, and then it doesn't make any actual sense for the movie.
Right.
Yeah.
As if this movie needed any more MacGuffins. Isn't Carol Marcus literally a fuck MacGuffin? Like she's just there because two people
At some point, Kirk is gonna fuck her.
Right? Yeah. Like
it's
like she doesn't really get a character otherwise.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wait.
Yeah.
We should coin this a MacGuffin.
A MacGuffin.
like the whole scene where she shows up naked in the shuttlecraft. Like Alice Eve says she didn't feel exploited, but really with that scene, if you excise it from the film, there's nothing that changes with the movie.
No.
It's like it's literally there for sex appeal. There's a moment. This is the thing I was thinking of
For the trailers.
There's a moment in 2009 Star Trek where Zoe Saldana like takes off her shirt when she goes back into her roommate's room, and Kirk is hooking up with her roommate, an Orion slave girl who's now in Starfleet.
Yeah.
Abrams on the commentary track, I think it's Orsi that says, "Hey, why does Zoe do this? Like take off her shirt like that, and you like get it in center frame." Abrams kind of goes, oh, well, you know, he kind of stumbles over his words. The reason is, oh, well, it's for sex appeal. The studio asked me to do it because Star Trek is fairly sexless.
At least that scene makes sense, and also that's a lie.
Yeah.
Star Trek is, like
Season
Star Trek
one,
under
they're
Roddenberry was
fucking-
infamously like being like hounded by the censor, being like less sex.
I mean, come on.
That is true. In the cage, there was the Orion slave girl that was kind of like dancing for Pike. That's true.
Not
That's true.
only, but like, think of original Star Trek. Uhura and fucking Kirk did the very first ever in history
Interracial kiss.
kiss.
Yes. But then he slaps her.
But this is
Listen,
based on sex.
It's on-screen horny. They're allowed to be horny in Star
Always.
Wars.
It has always been since the beginning of its creation about sex. Like it.
Well, but again,
it's
the
based on
scene would
pulp,
make sense. It's the
you know?
weird choice of like, okay, come with me. We're going to talk, but I'm going to ask you to turn around so I can change, as opposed to not do that scene. Like that scene is just awkward to do from like a logic staging point.
Yeah.
In the real world, like why does it happen that way? And part of it is that Abrams blocks all of the scenes the way like Law and Order SVU does, where it's all like, oh yeah, I saw that guy as I am moving my packs of meat around in my meat packing factory job. Like, no, I'm not gonna stop working so I can talk to the cops. I gotta hook this thing up and keep talking. Like, yeah, no, that jabroni was like he was a pretty nice guy, but always kind of quiet, kept to himself. Like, that's all the blocking in this movie.
Right.
Yeah.
Sorry, I know we need to move to pitches, but we brought up one thing, which is like this movie has a love, or like the Abrams movie has a love of Orions, which is really weird. It's like they know the greenskin metaphor of Star Trek, or the fame of greenskin stuff in Star Trek, and it's easy to use from a makeup perspective. But like
Kirk
they have no
is a
idea.
sex pest, and he loves to break the rules. Like, no, he's very by the book in the original series.
No, what I was going to say though is that they have a lot of Orions in this movie, specifically when the ship crashes into Starfleet's headquarters in San Francisco. There's like a well-dressed woman in like who is clearly Orion, like running away from it all.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I think they don't know what Orions are in this world, and I don't mean that it has to all be like pirates and sex slaves or whatever that scenario is, but like they should be coded as other or like immigrant. Like they could be ambassadors or something like that, but there should be this element of them not being integrated fully into into Federation society.
If it was like another alien race or something, sure, it's a little bit more.
Yeah. Like, not the end of the world for Starfleet. Starfleet is accepting of those kind of things. It's not crazy to have someone in Starfleet from a non-Federation species, but it's weird that they're just like casually everywhere.
But also that specific race, also.
Yeah.
of aliens.
Yeah, it's like the BoJack Horseman effect. You're really not supposed to question why they just are different things integrated into society, and sometimes they play on it, and sometimes they need you to treat them like people, and it's like it's so lackluster compared to source material, which there is plenty of.
But Abrams doesn't care about that because who the fuck loves Star Trek? Abrams even admitted, I think in an interview with Jon Stewart, he didn't like Star Trek. That's problem number one.
Yeah, maybe don't do the Star Trek project then, buddy.
Yeah, and like
you
2 years after this, 2 years after this movie comes out, he immediately releases Force Awakens. Right after this production, he went right into production on Force Awakens. So it's like, yeah, like it's Star Trek wanting to be Star Wars, and then he just says, "Fuck it, I just rather do Star Wars."
Yeah.
I was waiting for that job to open up, you know.
Yeah.
Well, Case, you in earnest brought some pitch notes for how to make this actual movie work. I would love to hear them because my pitch isn't even to use this movie. So
well,
you're
you heard
saving
my
me.
pitch. You're to Orville.
Well, okay, so let me throw this out there in terms of like my general thought about this movie. Like, while I threw out it would be fun to have Sybok, or it'd be really fun to have lore, and I think Sybok actually would be really interesting in this scenario. Let's say they really want to use the augments because they wanted to rip off of Wrath of Khan. Like, that was definitely a thing that they were thinking about for this movie. So here's my general
Don't make
thought.
them impervious, though.
No.
In the original series, like, Kirk defeats Khan by just beating him with a club.
Yeah, I mean, like, he's... Like, I have no problem if he's, like, Captain America level, somewhere in that range, but, like, you know, like, having him be completely unstoppable, Wolverine-blooded, yada, 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 it's going too far in that whole scenario. But here's my general thought. Open the movie roughly the same. The opening scene, I think, works fine for most of the purposes that you want for this movie. You need a proofreading pass so that you can fix some of the words, and you could, come up with a better excuse for why the Enterprise is in the water. It's cool that it, like, emerges from the water. That's a cool scene. Have an explanation for it. Whatever. Hell, you could even make like certain justifications of like, yeah, we were damaged because of like a conflict with the Klingons on the neutral zone, and we actually had to touch down for whatever reason. You know, like we were caught in the gravity well. Our warp core was like we had no impulse. We were either going to land gracefully in the water, or we were going to crash out of the sky, but it was going to be one of those two, and we chose land in the water. And then we found out that all life was going to die, so we had to interfere. You know, whatever justification. A lot of that could be explained in a line or two. Like, not a lot of stuff to really like kind of fix this scene for what it needs to be. Then have them get off. Like, you know, have some kind of scene with Spock. I would love Spock, McCoy, and Kirk all kind of talking about the mission and actually being like friends together. That trio is not really well represented in this series as a whole. Like having them as the power triad, and I get the idea that we're going to have Kirk and Spock as the two leads, and each of them have their respective deuteragonists. Like, that's fine. Like having like Uhura and Bones the Lancer's cool. She can be in the scene too. Have them all together, or not have her, but have like the fact that they're fighting be part of the vibe of it all.
Can we jettison the whole like Uhura loves Spock thing?
It's in this franchise.
Though.
It's not supposed to be, but it was established in the first one, so I'm trying not to like do things that are like fully like contradicting it all.
Like I said, with Beyond, they jettisoned that like right away. They're like, yeah, it's not working out. Bye. It's like
because it shouldn't have been.
It shouldn't
have been.
I mean, even if it's just a friendship, even if it's whatever, like whatever kind of relationship that they have,
what if we had a healthy on-screen breakup? What if we finally got a healthy on-screen breakup in one of our big budget IPs?
Well, I mean, that is Beyond.
It's Star Trek Beyond, Seth. It's a really good movie. You should go watch it.
I'm just saying that like. These are clearly our four main characters of the movie, so like have a scene with the four of them together kind of hanging out.
Yeah.
You know, like John Cho as Sulu is not as important of a character in the Star Trek lore.
Shut your whore mouth.
McCoy.
Shut your whore mouth.
I love Sulu. I love the rise of
I love George Takei. I've been on an elevator.
Amazing. Like,
I've been on an elevator with him and his husband, and it was the best day of my life.
I have met him twice, and one time I actually thanked him for all the Star Trek. Like, he was fantastic. He's cool dude. Shows up for any LGBTQ functions in New York if you're doing something.
Didn't you say that his husband actually says he's more of a Star Wars fan?
Okay, so here's quick segue, real quick, quick story time. So This was Awesome Con so long ago now. It was one of the first few Awesome Cons.
A decade ago.
Yeah, almost. And I was in my hotel room. I had to like grab something or drop something off because I like got something. Anyways, I was coming back down to the con. And I got on the elevator and I was in the same hotel as like where all the celebrities are staying.
Yeah.
And I got on the elevator and it's literally, I didn't even see George Takei and his husband at first. I literally just saw the two bodyguards behind them. And I was like, I'm going to die. Like, I didn't even step in the elevator yet. And I'm like, I'm going to die. And, also, other side note, I was dressed as Han Solo.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
Just saying. Dressed as, like, a gender-bent Han Solo. And...
Like a Han duo?
Sure. And then I was, like, frozen. And then George Takei is just like, it's okay, my child. Come on in. And I was like, am I gonna die if I do? And he's like, it's fine. So I go on in, and I'm like, I was actually speechless because I love this band, and I was just like, I love you. Like, that was the first thing that came out of my mouth. I was like, I love you. And then afterwards, I was like, I'm also really sorry I'm in your presence in a Han Solo outfit right now.
That's so funny.
And then he just looked at me. He's like, oh, whatever, it's fine. And then his husband leans in, and he's like, not gonna lie, I'm more of a Star Wars fan. Yeah. And then they like both looked at each other. I was like, I'm gonna die for real now. And I'm just like, I don't know what to do. And I like looking back, I'm so mad I just didn't ask for a photo or something, because after all that, I totally could have gotten one.
Oh yeah.
But like, I was just like, I think I'm gonna die. Between the bodyguards and the fight I just started between him and his husband, I was like, what the fuck?
Whoopsie.
And then I get out of the elevator, I'm like, thank you. And they're like bicker, like obviously they're not like really fighting, but they're like a play bickering.
Yeah,
and I was like, thank you. And they like laugh at me, and I'm like, I don't know what just happened.
Life changed.
Like, yeah. And so that's my story.
Nice.
I thought I was gonna die, and I started a fight between Sulu and his husband.
Was that 2014? Was that 2014 or 2015?
I think so. Something like that.
Okay, it was a long time.
Basically,
right
almost
after
a decade
Into
ago.
Darkness.
Yeah, it was basically almost a decade ago.
Yeah.
I mean, I've blocked out a lot of that con.
Yeah.
Except for basically that
George Takei. Understandable.
But,
yeah.
That's the only thing I take away good from that year, I think.
Case, what are some more pitch notes that you have for Into Darkness?
Okay, so we establish that we established the relationship of the main four of the ship. Again, it's just that they're the ones who are on the posters. Like just trying to. I love all the characters. I'm not trying to put anyone down, but they've become the four big ones in terms of pop culture, especially for this particular franchise. So I think there should be some kind of discussion about how they were handling it, or how they're going to like report the whole situation. Because then I think that definitely the three that were on the ground, Kirk, Spock, and McCoy, should all be in trouble in different ways for this whole situation when it comes back to it all.
Damn it, Jim! I'm a doctor, not a fucking cold fusion specialist.
Everything you're saying is in Beyond.
Yes, but that's what I'm saying. This is a good movie. I'm trying to like take elements that are good about, because it's also another Star Trek movies too.
Yeah,
so
it's
like,
true, but it's like that. If everybody wants like the template for like how you construct a Star Trek film with the original cast in a relaunched universe, Star Trek Beyond is the way to do it.
Yeah.
That movie did not get enough love when it came out. It really just kind of like disappeared.
Well, this movie kind of killed the buzz about this Star Trek franchise.
Oh yeah, like this movie,
absolutely.
like for all the money it made, it just like instantly just deflated any love for this universe.
Because people went into
I
it
actually
so
pointed out,
lovingly, but then they got it was like
yeah. I mentioned the case last night. I was texting him about this. I said, this feels like, remember the Yesterday's Enterprise episode of Next Gen?
Yeah.
Where the Enterprise C comes through a wormhole and it shifts the entirety of the Star Trek universe, where the Klingons are at war with humanity because they left a battle and they thought the humans are cowards, so they're going
Basically,
to war
the
with humanity.
Khitomer Accords never happen.
Yeah.
Yes, those accords never happened, and so now this is that universe, and Guinan is the only one that knows because she's some kind of sentient being throughout all dimensions or something. It's never explained,
Reasons.
but okay, for reasons. But yeah,
she's
like
a
there's
weird, super advanced race anyway that has dealt with time travel stuff, as we find out in Generations. In terms of if anyone's gonna sense
the Orville.
yeah, watch the Orville. Yeah, and someday I'll get Mike Stacklasa on here to fix Star Trek Generations, and someday I'll get him. Someday,
Watch the Orville.
Yeah, but yeah, there's that moment where Guinan is talking to Picard, and she says, like, Picard's like, "What's wrong with this Enterprise?" And she's like, "Well, where's the families? Where's the children?" And he's like, "Children on the Enterprise? Guinan, we're at war." And she says, "No, this isn't a ship of war. This is a ship of peace." That's what the Enterprise is, and it's like this universe that's been established in Into Darkness feels like that universe, where the Enterprise and all of Starfleet is a war-like organization. It is not designed for exploration. It is designed for combat against the Klingons. That's it. Nothing more. So, continue, Case.
Yeah. I mean, they hand wave that the Kelvin incident is sort of the reason why, although honestly, the stuff with Vulcan would make way more sense for how that would work, but that would be still knock-on effects of it all. My basic thought is that they are probably going to insist on having the augment situation. So why don't we have like some interesting stuff going on with us all before we have to like deal with that? And so my basic thought is that Kirk gets grounded. They haven't decided what they're going to do with him, but he's not in charge of any ships. He's not on the flight crew for any ships that are currently in space.
So like actual military protocol.
Yes, exactly. So he's grounded. McCoy gets reassigned, and I'm thinking that McCoy and maybe Scotty gets thrown in on this one, gets reassigned, and I'm going to say to the Constitution. And the Constitution we're going to establish as being Marcus's ship. So while the Enterprise is the flagship of the fleet, it's not the first ship in its class. The Constitution is, hence the Constitution class starship. So that's the NCC 1700 as opposed to 1701. So that they get reassigned over there. Spock being in transit from Starfleet HQ to the Enterprise, where he's going to meet up with Admiral Pike, who is now taking over the Enterprise again, as per this movie. Hit whatever vessel he's on, gets attacked, and we think that everyone's dead.
Oh, you're killing Spock early.
Well, so we think that that's what happens in Act 1. And so that instead of the bombing attempt on the Section 31 archives.
Okay.
So we think Spock seems to go missing, or like the ship is seemingly destroyed. Everyone thinks it's the Klingons.
So there's probable cause. Yeah.
Right.
There you go.
And this is the break into 2 is Pike reaching out to Kirk saying, Spock apparently has been killed. We have been assigned by Admiral Marcus to go on a mission to investigate, potentially recover the body, and bring whoever did this to justice. I need a first officer now because my first officer is gone. I knew Spock for a long time. He served on my ship before, and now I've got a hole. I need a person I can trust. I still trust you. Can you do it? And then we spend the first half of Act 2 with Kirk as first officer trying to deal with it all.
Okay.
And I could go back and forth on it, like, is the Enterprise being reassigned to Pike, and now Kirk is first officer of the Enterprise, and we have most of the crew? Or is Pike actually put on the Constitution? We put Marcus on the Enterprise. It doesn't really matter. It just matters which crew members you want to have on that, because my goal is to separate McCoy and ultimately Scotty and have them on Marcus's ship, and then Pike with Kirk, and then whichever crew you think makes the most sense.
Sure. I see what you're doing. So Kirk, Spock, and McCoy are Ethos, Logos, and Pathos.
Pathos.
Yep.
What's Pathos?
Pathos. pathos. Whatever.
We're drinking.
That
but you're
whiskey's
okay.
hitting you hard, Jesse.
Yeah, I know. It's like this is my third glass of Jack Daniels. So you're splitting them up so eventually you can reunite them in the third act.
Yeah. By the time we get to the third act, I want the three of them on different ships interacting with each other as friends across the ship, and maybe her as like acting as the communications between them.
Oh, that's
where
fun.
I want to get.
That's
into
really
this
fun.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Funnily enough,
Because
J.J. Abrams would be good at doing that kind of thing if it was written out well.
so the first half of Act 2.
Don't hire your friends to write your mega $1 million franchise.
Right. Sorry,
Yeah.
Case, continue.
So
Continue.
the first half of Act 2, Marcus clearly knows something. He's assigned the Enterprise to patrol the edge of the neutral zone because he thinks that's where the Klingon forces are coming from. He indicates that it's some sort of terrorist cell within the Klingons because we want the 9/11 stuff.
Blah,
Not
blah,
we,
blah.
but
Yeah,
like
can
they
we,
wanted it at
can
the
we,
time.
we already did it in season 3 of Enterprise. We don't need to do it again. I'm tired of it.
Well, or rather, we want
At
to
this
play
point,
we want to play on the fears that we could actually relate to, yada yada yada. Like at least that's what we're presenting it as, because he's trying to present it as like the whatever the political situation of like. If we want to get into like Afghanistan and then the Taliban, it should feel like we're commenting on that at this point because we're at the opening of Act 1, or pardon me, the opening of Act 2, and we're not being given all the information. Marcus knows more than he has relayed to everyone, and it looks like these two ships are going to be patrolling the edges of the neutral zone for that, and he's indicating that it might be something that's different than like the Klingon Empire per se, like a splinter cell within the Klingon Empire. And so at the first half of Act 1 is them, or I keep saying it, first half of Act 1. First half of Act 2 is them kind of searching around the neutral zone. We have some sort of like small interactions. We can do some sort of submarine kind of scenes with like Klingon ships, as it were, like kind of stealthing around and so forth, and interactions between them, but like across the different ships. And especially we get Kirk trying to act like captain on the ship and then having to be constantly like shut down on those things. So we spend the first half of Act 2 that way. The opening of the second half of Act 2, that second half of the movie, is Spock waking up. And he is on some kind of super advanced warship developed by the Federation that is being piloted by 72 augments.
Oh.
And that it is indicated in the first half of the act that Marcus's ship, whichever we choose, but I'm leaning towards the Constitution so that we can have more of the familiar crew with Kirk, has one torpedo that can that has a warp drive attached to it that can do a long range snipe of something.
Are you stealing this from Star Trek Voyager? Because that's literally a bit from Star Trek Voyager.
Which I forget which episode you're thinking of because I wasn't directly.
It's when the Doctor is a copy of the Doctor ends up on a ship that's like traveling through deep space in the Delta Quadrant. It's a Robert Picardo centric episode. But they find a torpedo that is a warp torpedo, and they're trying to stop it.
Oh, well, no, because this is just them using. I'm just trying to like create more explanation for what that torpedo is. Like why is it a long range torpedo?
Never mind. Just
similar tech though, similar ideas.
Yeah, similar basic ideas. Like for all of Voyager's faults, they at least like were creative with some of the things that they had in their universe.
Yeah.
So the thing is, the augments were all released.
I like Voyager. A lot of people don't like it. I think it's the one example of the series where it's like exploring strange new worlds. Like they're literally doing that because no one else is out there. So continue.
Yeah. So it's revealed that torpedo has Khan on it. Specifically, that is Marcus has been holding Khan as a blackmail chip against the augments that he's been using for this purpose. Like it's the same basic idea, but he freed all the augments who have this like religious cult like fervor for their lord. Like this cult leader figure, which was Khan Union Singh, so that we can have that character as like, so we can have Khan without having Khan. Like Khan is explicitly the one that we don't get, and then we can have the leader of their group be Benedict Cumberbatch, and then it doesn't matter that he doesn't quite match like the Khan that we know. He can just be a person who's in his service and is like obsessed with him, like it, and they can say like he's our father, he's like the person who is going to guide us into a better tomorrow. He's like, your Federation is a shadow of the utopia that Khan would bring, kind of thing. But they've been tasked with creating like all these super weapons, and so the ship should be this like dense, basically weapon bank with a cloaking device, and with all the tech that we would want to have in a Star Trek era, like a TOS era, like super advanced like warship interacting with each other. So you could have all like put cloaking devices on your photon torpedoes. Like put like
Why have they not done that? Like putting cloaking devices on the torpedoes.
I mean, some of the argument is the amount of power, but like this would be a short use kind of situation.
You're telling me in this
it's called you're using your head, Jesse. They're not using their fucking heads here.
In this technological wonderland, you're telling me they can't do that? Seriously?
Think of this. We literally, in today's day and age, have the ability to cure cancer. We have the ability to do all this fucking shit, but we don't because we're fucking humans, and to err is to human. Think of it that way.
I mean,
why do you think we're looking? Why do you think we're looking for strange new worlds? Because we need the people to counterbalance our human idiotic.
Yeah.
So here's why they capture Spock. Their cult is not based around them being perfect. It is the goal of reaching perfection. So the goal they want is to learn about this new future they've woken up in and take as many good things as possible and integrate it into their collective in moving into a level of perfection. They find the human-Vulcan hybrid that has all of these biological advancements really fascinating, and they want to incorporate that kind of genetic diversity into their collective breeding pool. Like, the words eugenics are used a lot in the Space Seed episode. Like, they are trying to create a weird utopian society.
That horrible word.
Yeah, that's...
So, like, I'm not saying we, like, say that necessarily in this movie, but I'm saying like the basic idea is that what they're actually trying to do is bring in everything interesting, find every race that can be hybridized with humanity in ways that would be interesting and experiment on that. So they try to appeal to Spock, who listens to them because they are making a lot of good points. They are pointing out what happened to Vulcan. They point out all of the issues that have been occurring with the Federation ever since the Kelvin incident. They
want to have against him. I love it.
Exactly.
Jesse's allergic to this good thought of thinking.
And so
I had an itch in my nose. I got rid of it.
So we think that Spock is for it because like they could make some really cool cases. I would have to stop and look up like when the first contact with the Trill occurred, but I think that would be like a really interesting comparison. Like the symbionts like would be a really fascinating tool for the augments, like being able to preserve like the memory of a person.
Yeah, where are the symbiotes in this whole thing?
Like again, like we've got a lot of cool
Deep Space
races
Nine
out there.
thing.
Yeah, like they showed up in TNG and they got retconned when they went over to Deep Space Nine. So like maybe they hadn't made first contact, but there are other races that have had first contact at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, certainly there would be a fascination with the 4 founding Federation species. So like what's going on with the Tellarites? What's going on with the Andorians? Like like are there interesting stuff? We know that Klingons and humans can have hybrids. We know that Romulans and humans can have hybrids. Like we know that there's all these potential variations that can go on because TNG revealed that they're actually all from one species that have evolved on different worlds because
just
of
like
genetic
Saiyans
seeding.
and humans can have hybrids,
right?
And produce more powerful options, or at the very least combine them in interesting ways. I mean, like the Enterprise episode that dealt with the augments sounds like the worst bit of fanfic if you just give the plot summary, but the episode itself is actually pretty good. And like that actually ends up being the explanation for why the Klingons like look weird, because they tried to do the genetic augment thing. Like this is the reverse. The augments are trying to do the hybridization thing, and that could be actually kind of cool if they're like trying to like appeal to Spock as like we are going to go off and like forge our own destiny and create a perfect world because we see that the Federation has failed. We now have the technology to leave Earth. We're not going to conquer Earth. We're going to leave Earth. We're going to make our own perfect society, and we're going to bring in all of the best of all of the different worlds, and we're going to show the Federation how it's done. And then secretly, and then once we show them how it's done, we're going to take over, obviously. But that should be like kind of the vibe of it all. Meanwhile, Marcus is the one who's like aggressively trying to get the Federation into like a war mode, and so like the head of it all should come to the point where, at the end of the second act, we have something kind of akin to Marcus being in position to take out the ship that has all the augments on it, in the Enterprise, trying to shuffle around this whole thing. I like the specific details for like the break into 3 is like a little bit funky right there, because I do like the idea, like. I like the idea of the Enterprise being damaged and being caught in the gravity well of a planet. I think that's actually kind of cool. I think it's really annoying that they're like moving around as if they're on like different, like clearly they're aping Inception at this point, when really they should have been in free fall. That whole sequence should have been everyone floating on the Enterprise, which hasn't really been done that much in Star Trek, and would have been a really cool
Right.
sequence that you could do big budget that you can't do on a TV show very well.
Exactly.
Like,
No, yeah,
have
zero
the whole
G would be so cool looking.
like
Has there
have
ever
that
been a
whole
story
sequence.
where a ship has been caught in a black hole or the gravity well of a black hole?
I mean, they kind of had that in the 2009 Star Trek movie.
I mean, a legitimate black hole.
A
Like, has there
legitimate
ever been a
black hole?
time where they?
I know Next Gen did a black hole thing. I'm trying to remember the context of the episode.
I
There
honestly
was-
don't know.
There was a comic book series years ago. I can't remember what the name of it was. It was done by Brian Haberlin. It was really good. It was like what if Star Trek was actual like NASA science, like sending out a ship to explore strange new worlds, like the realistic interpretation of how it would be. They end up near a black hole and they decide to like circle it. Like it like as a means of not going directly into it. It's like, well, let's circle it to buy us some time.
Like a slingshot effect, yeah.
A slingshot effect to then like zip them out of it as quickly as possible. And they eventually get pulled out of it by some alien race that rescues them. And unfortunately, the series was canceled after 2 trades because no one was buying it. So it ends on this giant cliffhanger,
Yeah.
which sucks because it was a good series. I encourage people to read it. It's called oh fuck, what the hell was it called? God damn it. Give me a second. I need to know this series.
Sure.
2 seconds.
Do, 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 do.
Yeah, I see what you're setting up here too, Case. Just like without having laid all the like fine work of scene to scene action, you're setting up a finale where you have 3 different points of view.
I have the name.
Oh,
Faster than light. Faster than light. That's
Faster
what it's
than
called.
light.
Okay.
It only lasted 10 issues, ended in 2016.
Damn.
Yeah. Only 10 issues long, so it's only 2 trades. So jump right in and read it. It ends on a giant cliffhanger, unfortunately.
Womp womp.
Sorry.
Anyway,
Yes.
similar kind of scenes where Scotty, sabotages the warp core. You can have McCoy arguing with Marcus in person about the morality of everything, and you can have Spock betray the augments and actually like either shut things down or like lower the shields or whatever. And they should all be communicating via her, like
something.
putting in secret messages back and forth, kind of like the way in Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, they give basic like they do like thieves' cant to get around like Khan listening in to their messages. Like there should be something to that effect that allows for them to get around
I love that.
the specifics of
Yeah.
it all. Where
The cleverness of Wrath of Khan, where Kirk knows that Khan is listening, and he just like, Starfleet handbook says if anybody's listening on uncoded communications, like use code to transmit your information. It's like 2 hours means 2 weeks, blah blah blah. Yeah, there's no cleverness with Into Darkness, though.
Yeah.
You need to put that in, like it was
Yeah.
Into Darkness.
I like
it was
that.
in Wrath of Khan.
Yeah. Because I really like the idea of Kirk, Spock, and McCoy on 3 different ships coordinating with each other to like basically cripple the other 2 ships so that the Enterprise is able to come out ahead. And I think somewhere in there we probably would get the Pike death sequence. That could be your like lowest moment, like the all is lost moment at the end of Act 2 kind of thing, and Kirk resumes command of the Enterprise. Type situation. And if it is one where they're on the Constitution, then we can do the space jump to the Enterprise so he retakes his ship kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which could be a fun sequence. But
the Dead Space sequence, because that was literally in Dead Space 2, where you jump from one side of the station to the other.
yeah, I mean, like it's
Literally in
good-
Dead Space 2, where you jump from one side of the station to the other. It's the same
It's
thing.
a good action beat. I don't like that they call out that it's so similar to the Skyfall in the first movie, because they are actually different. Like just about everything about it is different. It's just it's a high speed, we're moving in one direction kind of sequence. Like the need to like to make those comparisons is kind of unnecessary.
Well, yeah,
this movie feels.
you have to
I
have
just
superhero
realized-
moments in your superhero movies, and that's essentially what this new trilogy was lined up to be. It had to go up against Marvel and DC. Like that's how their marketing is thinking, because that whole sci-fi market is
peak. I was about to say peak
Yeah.
Marvel and DC too.
right.
This came out a year after the Avengers and came out. What was it? 2 months after Man of Steel.
Yeah.
So it's
So you need your
this.
flying sequences. That's literally that's what the movie's trying to get you to kind of forgive in your head, that like previous Star Treks don't do people outside the ship very often.
What like going back to Wrath of Khan, if I could just for a moment, like William Shatner's performance. I know he's not a great actor. I get it. but his performance in that film, Wrath of Khan, is so understated. The moment where he's like reflecting on the fact that he's a deadbeat dad in when he's in the Genesis mining tunnels, and he's so just depressed about the fact that he wasted his life not being part of a family. Like, it's such a good scene. It's like none of that is in this movie Into Darkness. So, yeah. For those who don't know, Wrath of Khan is a really good movie. You really should go watch it.
So, allowing for the fact they get back to a planet, Earth is kind of a stretch in terms of the distance, but like, fuck it. Like,
I called that immediately.
Somewhere to land.
Yeah. So
could we just, because they're right next to the moon? Can't we just crash on the moon? Like in the end of this movie, when the Vengeance and the Enterprise are next to each other, they are near the moon. Couldn't we just like crash on the moon?
Yeah, I mean, like, if so, like, we would still have...
Because somehow it drifts back into Earth's orbit, which, if you were taking it to, like, I don't know, the Apollo mission takes 3 days to get from Earth to the moon. They get there in, like, 5 minutes?
Well, different engines. I
was going to say...
Oh, fuck you, Seth.
May I refer back to Futurama, the second episode, where Fry's like, oh, could I do the countdown? And Leela's like, oh, sure. And he's like, 5, 10... 9, and they're like right at the moon. He's like 5, 4, 6, 3, 2, 1.
And like,
I mean, either way, because like
bases on the moon too. Like,
exactly. They if they crash into the moon, they would still be crashing into cities. They just would be dome cities. So you could have like
they're dome cities.
The dome breaks, a force field goes up. There, like there's like momentary like destruction there. Either way, I like the idea of it being the Constitution crashing because while I don't like the fact that the Vengeance is laid out the way it does for a ship that is supposed to be, here's our super advanced warship, because that doesn't make sense. I do like the idea of a Constitution class ship being the thing that is used for this massive collateral damage. From the standpoint of like the Enterprise is the series Superman, like in the sense of like it is the beacon of hope. It is this like symbol of our collective action and power. It is the height of what mankind is able to do together to reach to the stars, to be this like force for good out in the universe.
You don't want to corrupt it.
And so to have that symbol that has become the symbol for the Federation at this point, to be one of those Constitution class ships crashing into a Federation section, like, or a civilian section of the Federation, is a really dramatic, kind of terrifying perversion of that thing. I think that part was good. Like the Vengeance looking like a Constitution class ship made no sense for the type of ship, but if it was actually a Constitution class ship that was being crash landed and like say that the augments had like you basically did a shell game, the augments got onto the Constitution and
here's a way of getting around that. Like, make it look like a Constitution class ship, but we have fighter jets now where the weapons are internalized. Like the F-22 Raptor, when that was announced, like all the weapons were internal to the actual craft. So it would have bay doors that opens up and all the missiles come out. Why not have like that happen with that version of the Vengeance?
Yeah, you could
where like
present
all the weapons are interior, so that way if it takes damage, it doesn't damage the gun turrets.
Sure, but like it's still like the big saucer is like mostly there because it's a lot of like sensor arrays and stuff. Like if you wanted to explain that it's like actually a bunch of weapon banks, cool, but like we do need to establish that it is that way. And either way, it's still a bigger target. It just seems weird that they wouldn't like make it more compact, because we know that we don't need the big saucer section for the layout of Star Trek spaceships. Like the nacelle arrangement is important.
You don't need that for spacecraft in general. They could look like anything.
Well,
like,
but that's what I'm saying. Like
that's his issue.
The nacelle arrangement is important in Star Trek because that's how they create the warp field that allows them to travel that way. And that's why when we see, like, for example, the Romulan ships, there's actually the same configuration even though it's inverted, because it's supposed to reflect the fact that it's the same fundamentals of the technology, even if it's coming from a different direction. But the saucer section itself is specifically designed to be, here's a science vessel that has lots of sensors, lots of workstations, lots of compartments, lots of places, but you don't have that on a warship. You would have it be much more compact. So you would have like the head, like the Klingon ships that have like this tiny little head at the front of their ship. It's the same basic body plan, but it's very small as opposed to like big front like section that you could be targeted at, which
Mhm.
makes sense
Yeah.
for a more warlike race. So like this ship should honestly look a bit more Klingon in that regard.
I love that.
Honestly,
I
if
love
you
the
wanted to
idea
talk
that
about
that's like the secret of their Cold War too. That maybe he's bringing in Klingon scientists to help work on this warship for the humans and for the Federation. Like
Yeah.
that kind of like the ugliness of the Cold War is how intermingled all the economies were at every level, from
Like an Operation Paperclips kind of thing, but with
exactly
like Klingon.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, if you want to talk about like the actual like best version of a starship that you could put into the atmosphere into space, the Borg cube.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Space doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
Like there's no atmosphere. Like that's the best version. Like the center mass of it, the actual control center is at the center, and you have the cube around it moving through space. There's no reason to not have it look like a cube.
That's why the
Yeah,
Borg
yeah.
wins, baby.
That's why the Borg win.
Well, and like that gets into a broader issue I have with like the name Into Darkness, that I don't know if this movie would ever have the
Doesn't match
space to kind of
At all?
right. Well, like there's this element of eldritch horror about the Borg that I thought was so cool when they were introduced, that it was like, oh, the Federation hasn't even seen the limits.
I'm so
of, like,
cracking up with the Jack Daniels.
how terrible everything is out there. And this movie doesn't do anything to address that. And if you want to get into like how far are we willing to pervert ourselves, we really need to show the society as a whole doing that. And so
Yeah.
I think having a larger society of augments kind of pushing it, and like to have a regular Federation ship be willing to be like doing war crimes because they've been pushed to their darkest point because of the propaganda and the warmongering that have infected the society at this point, and to pull back from that, to have the Enterprise pull back and frankly shoot down the Constitution and like send it crashing in like into wherever,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and then we can have the chase sequence, but like it's not Spock just by himself chasing after him for no fucking reason. Like for one thing, we'd have multiple augments, so like have a bunch of them land, like survive. They're like trying to get away. Maybe they're getting to a Section 32 base. Maybe they're getting to like where like Khan was actually stored. Whatever kind of like reason for them to go wherever or to get away to whatever kind of thing that we need by the end of the second act going into the third. But it should be crews. We should have lots of red shirts being dropped in throughout this whole chase, and Spock's just the only one who's able to keep up with whomever the leader of the augments is. So the Benedict Cumberbatch, we'll call him John Harrison for the sake of it, but he's chasing down Harrison. Everyone else is popping in. They're shooting various members of the augments and keeping it to a smaller group. Spock's the only one who actually can like keep up, but new ones are being dropped in at new locations throughout this whole period. Spock keeps going, and we actually get like an augment for Spock kind of fight to, if you want to end your movie with that kind of sequence there. And like show like where the Vulcan actually plays off. But we've also established some personal connections because Spock has been on the augment ship this whole time and ultimately betrayed them after pretending, like after lying ultimately to them that he sees the logic. But he's like, I did see the logic, but that doesn't mean that you're right.
Yeah.
I don't think we should ever have the blood. I think it should be like a toxin or something that like they have the antidote for, not just like their blood cures whatever. And maybe
because it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah,
it makes no sense.
It should be like maybe if they are going to do the magic blood thing, it should be more of there's basic. So even like in today's society, we've been doing a lot of testing on lizards and axolotls and starfish because they have a better regenerative trait
creatures that
in
regenerate.
them. They have a better regenerative trait in them, but it's not pure shit that we're working on. We're taking that DNA, we're splicing into other things. So Bones should have taken his DNA and be like, wow, this is a lot more regenerative, and then altered it in such a way or like fused it with something. And then that should have been it. Not just, I'm taking his blood and putting it into you. It's not a fucking basic blood transfusion. That's not how it works on any fucking level.
More
And
like a
Kirk
wolf
shouldn't die.
A
Like,
wolf,
Yeah.
a Wolverine or a Deadpool kind of thing where they can regenerate. Like if Kirk ever does die, and here was my idea for the end of this movie. If he just like kept the movie wholesale, end of the movie, Kirk dies. You don't regenerate.
also would be fine with
remember
Kirk dying. Yeah.
That
and
too.
like and Spock
just
takes
end
over.
it.
Like
just end it. Yeah.
Yeah, like that would be interesting because, like, oh, we're going way off book, aren't we? Okay,
Well,
you thought we were
then
going
it's
to do
its own
just all of
story.
Wrath of Khan.
Yeah.
It's his own story,
Yeah.
like ending it there. It's like that's fine. Like like,
especially
but they didn't have
if
the balls to do that.
Well, especially if you still leave in the lines like, "Oh, I'm now older than when my dad died."
Right.
And that could be like a foreshadowing moment, so to say, too.
Right.
And that would have left, and like if he died, he died, and then it's its own thing.
Damn.
Yeah.
And that could have been like so poetic in and of itself.
Yeah. I like that. Case, do you have any more notes to go over?
No, that kind of covers the bulk of it. Like the Marcus stuff, I just would either, if you need to have her in her bra and panties, like just lean into it. Like, don't be like, look away. Like I said, turn around. Like it's such. It's the worst kind of fan service because it's like kind of embarrassed, and at the same time it's like overly titillated by like a thing that's not really that big a deal.
I know it's bad, but just let me have it.
No, I mean, again, Zoe Saldana in the first one where it's just like, she's changing, she's in her room changing, like, makes enough sense in the scene. Like, she could be changing.
But she does it, but you can tell she doesn't want to do it because she does it so fast.
Yeah.
It's like she was clearly like goaded into it. You can tell. Like, and the commentary track on the DVD doesn't really offset that.
I'm just saying that in the context of the scene makes sense in the first one because she came home and she's changing her clothes.
If
in the second one, why would you have that conversation if you don't want him to see you and you care?
So
I was about to say, if you're gonna have that, do it in a different context. Like she's like, "Oh, I'm about to get ready before we head out," and then he walks in. Type of deal.
Yeah.
Like,
I think the way this new trilogy approaches sex stuff is that like anime nosebleed attitude towards it, where it's really just kind of embarrassing about it. But like, if you look at the old stuff, like Next Gen, anytime Deanna Troi is getting like sexy dressed up, it is the show's like, no, this is hot. This is hot people in space. And we like that. We're not embarrassed by that. Right?
I mean, that's even a thing that's like Ronald D. Moore, who was one of the best writers of Star Trek, who, by the way, was a fan before he became a writer on Trek. He wrote, what was the episode? The Bonding? I think is what it was. Yeah. He's like, it's not a great episode. It's okay.
Back in the day, they had an open script policy for TNG, so you could submit your script and they would take it in.
They sure as shit don't do that anymore.
I mean, basically, what is Kurtzman doing if not that?
Oh, god damn it, Kurtzman, you fucking asshole.
Got him.
But yeah, he was mentioning how like the structure of the Enterprise bridge is like, oh, well, you have the captain, you have the first officer, you have the helmsman, you have the weapons specialist, you have the science officer, and then you have the counselor. Like, you have his therapist next to him deciding how the captain is supposed to act. Like, they never knew what to do with Deanna Troi on the Enterprise D, so they had to constantly invent new shit for her.
She's a perception check role in D&D. That's her function in any plot. She's a perception role.
The justification really is because Gene Roddenberry was really into women, like really loved hot women, which is why the Orion slave girls are a thing. This is true. This is true. That's why Majel Barrett was part of the original series and then made her way over to Next Gen. He really wanted sex appeal in some way on the show, but the technobabble kind of got in the way of that. So people kind of like, they look at Star Trek and think, oh, technobabble, I don't want to hear that shit. But there was kind of sex appeal behind Star Trek. And so Deanna Troi for TNG for the first 2 seasons was that.
Yeah.
Like, the outfit they gave her is so revealing. It has that low-cut V-neck.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I get it. Like, I get it.
Like, the source material that all this is based on is those old, sexy pulp novels with a laser space gun and a hot woman and a monster and a captain and... You know,
she's Deja Thoris from the John Carter series.
Yeah.
That's what she is. Like, that's what she is, and that's fine. I'm okay with that. I like the John Carter stories. Yeah, they're fine.
I'm with Case on this. I think being embarrassed about it makes it more awkward. And you talk about the new future they live in, where it's like it's not weird for men and women to change in front of each other. They're like, we figured that out. We're good.
Are we talking about Starship Troopers now?
Well,
there's a whole episode. There's a whole episode where DePaul is going through Pong Far, and she has no one to meld with, and so she's like going apeshit, like, I need to fuck someone now. Like the whole episode where they had to like stun her, and they finally like, just go to sleep, just go to sleep.
But even outside of that, like every single episode of Star Trek of Enterprise, they had the decontamination room where they're all in their underwear and just like massaging each other with oil while being sprayed down. Yeah. Like this is not a society that is like prudish about nipples, like let alone like it's like, ooh, there's a bra. Like
I made that post last night where by the way, can we mention that in this movie the Star Trek uniforms, they look like Nazis.
Are we talking about Starship Troopers?
Like, this is Starship Troopers. This is not Starfleet at all. They don't even look like the uniforms from the first movie.
I mean, Hope, you said that this doesn't look like that. This doesn't need to be a Star Trek movie. This honestly could have been one of the many direct-to-video Starship Troopers sequels.
Thank you.
It would have played pretty much the same way.
Absolutely.
Yes,
it might be better for it.
Which, by the way, Jolene Blaylock was in the third, was it Starship Troopers Invasion, I guess what it was called?
It's the one where Casper Van Dien came back. But...
he was in Marauder, and she was DePaul in Star Trek Enterprise, which leads back to Star Trek.
Yeah.
Okay, you can follow the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon back to this.
He's gone the one place we can't go, clandestine.
But yeah, that's the thing. Like, it just feels like this universe feels like it wants to be a Starship Troopers movie and not a Star Trek movie.
Which it's frustrating because the end bit about like the captain's oath and they get into the whole like space, the final frontier.
Oh, that was bullshit. You know, did they do any of that shit from the original Oath of exploring strange new worlds? Did they do any of that shit at the very beginning of the movie?
Kind of at the opening of the movie, yeah. And like what I'm saying is that if this movie really was like looking back, like looking in the mirror and saying, here's where we've been pushed because of things, and we have allowed ourselves to go that way when we're supposed to be better than that, and we need to turn away and go back out into the final frontier, into the undiscovered country, find everything that's out there, and like create a better tomorrow for us all. Like that would be a hopeful ending for this movie, and they kind of are doing it, but they're doing it as lip service. They're not really being self-reflective at the end of this whole movie. Like we're not getting to the point where like Kirk is like talking down to the Admiralty about how easily they were swayed by, you know, the manipulations of the augments or something to that effect. Like that's, I think, what this movie needed. It needed some sort of explanation of what Starfleet and the Federation, and by proxy America, allowed itself to become in for the worst of reasons, and became the worst of itself, and like what ideals are we trying to like use as we go forward into tomorrow.
It's asking the question but then not presenting any answers. It's just going like we're going into darkness. I get it.
Well, that's the thing with Abrams. It's like, oh, he'll present the beginning of an idea and then doesn't finish it.
Well, and that's also why Abrams is really bad at doing like, this is the value of collective action. Like there's rarely, like, while there might be like a team move every now and then, it's still usually like a chosen one kind of character or two. And like this movie really needed it to be like, it's the Enterprise together solved the situation,
right?
And like even if it's Spock making the rundown at the end, like it's with a team, it's with people. It wasn't by himself. Like it's not, I don't like, why isn't her the one who teleports down?
Yeah.
You're using your brain. Stop using your brain.
There was a bunch of like really big like security guys beforehand that would have been much better at taking on Khan than Uhura.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
and if they're not being used, maybe they've been perverted by the ideology of either Marcus or Khan, or like the whatever equivalent Khan character you're using for this. Like,
what if this was about a fracturing of Starfleet? Like we're getting underway, and then like this massive catastrophe just like shatters Starfleet like straight down the middle, like America is now. We're divided in half.
I mean, I gotta say, the more the pitch notes I had was based around the augments, and I hadn't thought about it being Sybok until we got onto this call. If it was Sybok, that would actually be a really logical character. No pun intended. Like in terms of like
fun.
Like imagine a terrorist cell of Vulcans, like that are very, have very rational reasons for how the Federation did not do enough to make sure that they were safe, and in fact created these problems by virtue of the way that the Federation has like infinitely mingled with time travel throughout the entirety of every series of Star Trek. And the fact that they're open to like time terrorism, which happens in the first movie, is evidence of like the fact that like this course is bad.
Yeah. And going through the analysis that Starfleet is a representation of just the melting pot of America, seeing how they didn't do enough to help everybody else around them. Like, it's
pretty damning.
It's pretty relevant to America, like, I don't know, since from like the year 1900 forward.
I mean, even before that, when we get into Haiti.
Right. Oh yeah.
I've got a huge problem with all of this course though, and where my like micro pitch to end this would be is that all of this is not Star Trek by definition, because splintering Starfleet or having, you know, some kind of Osama bin Laden metaphor within your movie, the Star Trek universe at its core is meant to represent humanity that's gotten past problems. Right? It is a post-scarcity society, and so the adventures have to come down to moral decisions and moral dilemmas. If you can only make a moral dilemma by fracturing your society, you're fracturing your connection to Star Trek. So my pitch for the second Star Trek movie would be not to continue doing the original series as your starting point. I would do each movie as a movie remake of each series. So the first movie is the original series, the second movie's Next Generation. We'll get a Voyager movie, we'll get and these recasting, retellings that surmise the entire series up into a film, right? Mm-hmm. So there is no Into Darkness, there is no sequel. It's a next-gen movie. We're pitching a recast, reimagining of a next-gen movie because we got
no love for the animated series.
Listen, I'm here for the. Listen, I would go as far as
what
saying,
about Lower Decks?
No,
listen, all of them.
But they got those characters onto Strange New Worlds, Boimler and oh god, what the hell's the name? What's the name?
Mariner.
Boimler walk. He did it in real life. Yeah. Thank you so much just for that. Oh man, yeah, Star Trek has gotten so good. It's so fun to record this.
It's gotten so good now that Abrams and Kurtzman are out the fucking door. Thank God.
It's nice to visit this movie on its 10-year anniversary because like very very much so. We've gotten a lot.
We did this last season with Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah.
And that's another film that everyone just kind of like, yeah, we're sorry. We forgot.
Whoops.
Like, yeah, we fucked up.
But we've got a lot better Star Trek now. So that would be my pitch that I'll turn out to the audience. What if you're going to do this J.J. Abrams style?
I just realized it. Star Trek Into Darkness isn't a title. It's a threat for where Star Trek was going for the next, 10 years.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Well, and fortunately, 10 years later, we're in a much better spot.
We're in Strange New Worlds now, you know?
Yeah, I was
Strange New Worlds, Picard Season 3, below, was it Lower Decks? It's like we have good Star Trek again. We made it through, guys. We survived.
And even beyond that, Hope keeps saying, the Orville. We have more not Star Trek.
Or if we really want to get into what else is out there, there's things like Starship Farragut and all the fan films that were coming out. And
there you go.
Including Farragut Forward, the Star Trek fan film that I'm working on.
You worked on that I was supposed to work on if I wasn't in New York at the time. Thank you, Case. Jesus.
To be fair, we didn't know each other at the time. So.
John actually asked me, John Broughton, who actually was the financier of that series, he actually asked me, he's like, hey, would you come on to be a big buff guy, to be on the show, to be a big fighter or something like that? It's like, sure. It's like, but he never got back to me. I was like, okay. All right.
Never found a spot for a buff guy.
Okay, fine, sure.
Well, I think this is where we're gonna kind of pull things to an end here. I want to I want to turn that one out to the audience. If you're gonna do a J.J. Abrams reimagining of this, a new single one shot action Star Trek movie, but it's got to be set around Next Generations this time. Who are you casting? Who do you want to throw on to direct? I think that would be a fun question for the audience.
I found our triple.
Nice.
Well, isn't like there's been talk of doing a continuation post season 3 of Picard with Picard's son? Hasn't there been talk of that? It's not like greenlit yet, but it has been talk of it.
It's in talks.
No, see, I'm saying like I want to see a brand spanking new young bald actor playing young Picard. Like that's my kind of out the gate pitch.
Maybe it's too late now, but if you wanted me 20 years ago, would have said, fuck it, Tom Hardy, because he was in Star Trek Nemesis.
Oh, wow. That really would have brought it full circle.
I really dug deep on that one. Yeah, but it's like, I don't know.
No, yeah,
I was waiting for the Gap to say that same thing, though. So.
Maybe the movie doesn't have to be early in the career. Maybe it's mid-career, and you can use just Tom Hardy as your Picard. That would be cool. That's a great start. It's like,
well, he's too old now. It's like just cast the guy that they cast as like Picard's son in season 3 of Picard. Just get that guy.
Well, I think we're gonna pull this to a close. We really went at it today. 2.5 hours on Into Darkness. What a way to start off the season. Case, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. I'm so happy to come back and talk Trek.
You gave so much legitimacy to the Star Trek knowledge in your pitch there, knowing the numbers of the ships and the classes.
Oh gosh,
yes.
Fucking nerd.
No. Listen, as a host, for me to not have to know that stuff, but know that anyone listening will get their jollies tickled for knowing stuff. I love that. Hope, Jesse, thank you both for being here. I appreciate you drinking your way through this one.
Dude, I'm fucking blitzed right now.
I bet.
I have my support dog with me right now.
Order a pizza and go lay down.
This was I want to go through my list of like the things I saw in 2013 real quick. Give me 1 second. Also, if I could recommend Heather Antos, who's been on our show a couple times. She is currently editing Star Trek New Worlds, the Scopulus run. Or the Scopuli run, a new comic series that's coming out pretty soon.
Yeah, she's doing a signing next week.
Yeah, she's really sweet. I really love her a lot. The Quartering hates her, which means you should really love her work. Go pick up her stuff. The Quartering fucking sucks. If the Quartering hates it, go read her stuff.
It's probably good, yeah.
It's probably good. So here's my list of the best of 2013, the same year this came out. Pacific Rim.
Oh, okay. Hell
yeah. Okay.
Crystal Fairy and the Magic Cactus. Which Way Is It to the Front Line from Here, which is the Tim Hetherington story, who was a journalist in war journalism. Upstream Color.
Oh, that one was pretty cool.
And my favorite of 2013, Only God Forgives, a Nicholas Winding Refn film.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Here's my worst of 2013. The Lone Ranger. Movie 43.
Ooh.
After Earth.
God damn.
And Star Trek Into Darkness. That was my least favorite or most hated of 2013. This was at the bottom of my list because as much as I didn't like Man of Steel, this personally hurt me.
Yeah.
Like this is a Star Trek movie made by people that don't like Star Trek.
Yep.
Yeah.
Abrams admitted on Jon Stewart's The Daily Show, when he was still running The Daily Show, he hates Star Trek.
Because he had a goal in mind.
Yeah.
And it was Star Wars, and it didn't match up until he finally got it. And which was like a couple years later. And it was kind of like the Game of Thrones thing, where the directors of Game of Thrones were like, fuck you, we're going to do Star Wars now. And then they didn't get it. And they went back all butthurt and they fucked it up. It's the same type of shit.
If this was a Star Wars movie, I can forgive a lot, but it's Star Trek, so I can't forgive anything.
That's what I'm saying, though. It's...
Yeah. So...
The bar is set high. I get it.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's going to do it for us. That was 2013 was a rough year. I'm glad that The Flash revisited it, and then we got to revisit it. one more time. It's been a rolling thing for us.
Seth,
listen,
that off-season episode. Fuck you.
I said
man.
season 6 vibes. We're back in hell, baby.
Oh fuck, dude. At least the next one is like fine.
Yeah, true.
What's our next one on the pitch?
Source code. I'm the one that chooses the films that we do. Oh, by the way, Case, episode 4 of this season is Highlander 2: The Quickening. Fuck you. We're actually doing it, you coward.
Isn't that what
We're doing it, you cowards, you piece of shit.
Jesse,
We're doing it.
I swear it's next time on Another Pass.
Jesse, aren't we doing the source Highlander with Jay? Or Ian?
Oh God, who are we doing it with?
Ian, right?
Oh no, Jason. We're doing Jason Lennox.
Oh, with Jason, yes.
Yeah, because he loves Highlander, but he's never seen Highlander 2.
Oh,
and
that
I
poor
said
bastard.
he gave me the option of like various movies, and I said, "Well, why don't you Highlander 2: The Quickening? Because you like the first one." And he said, "I've never seen Highlander 2. I've seen 1 and 3. I've never seen 2." It's like, you should do 2.
Are you gonna make him watch like all 5 versions of Highlander 2? The
There's only
Renegade cut.
2.
Well, no, there's a couple director's cuts beyond the Renegade and the Quickening, but
the original version is on YouTube. The original version is available on YouTube. It is terrible.
I can't.
Aliens
wait.
from the planet Zeiss.
It's really bad, but we don't have to get to that till September, so we're a ways away from that.
Right.
So.
Well, thank you all again for being here. You can check out Case on Another Pass and the Men of Steel podcast. You can check us out on our other shows, Mind Brain Movies, Split the Difference, To Whatever's Way Up, Game Rescue Show.
Case, you're off season at this point because of the writer's strike. Is that right?
For Another Pass, we're off season. Men of Steel, we're holding some episodes until after the strike's over that are like comic or that are movie themed ones, but we have some comic ones that we're dropping soon.
I was gonna say, Mind Brain Movies is starting back up in September. Me and my psychologists I work with are finally getting our schedules unblocked. So
hell yeah.
Nice.
All right, I think that's gonna do it for us. Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Live long and prosper.